Is this Jastin? Or was Jastin last week? I don't remember.
I think it is me. Let's go with R
R.
as in river.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I actually have some of that. Casting news for Dwayne The Rock Johnson. He's going to be the lead in the next Martin Scorsese film. He's going to be playing a Hawaiian crime boss.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Okay. I guess Scorsese is like, well, I've covered all the, I've covered as many white ones as I possibly could. So let's just go through. Let's just see what other crime bosses existed
I'm
in
nervous.
other societies.
Yeah, I'm nervous about it because I think we've all stated of like the wrestler turned actors, The Rock is the weakest. But maybe he'll put in the work here and like show us wrong.
I mean, the thing is there's lots of elements from The Rock's wrestling persona that could play crime boss.
That's true, actually.
Yeah.
Although it's going to be really funny if The Rock becomes Martin Scorsese's new guy. And then you just have him playing all the roles again.
He's new Leo.
Yeah.
That'd be crazy. But if Martin has that kind of confidence in him, I mean, that really says something. Martin usually doesn't mess up with his casting choices. So.
Except for that movie where Robert De Niro played a young guy. That's pretty bad.
The Irishman?
Yeah, that one.
Man, shut up, man. That was good.
Man, that movie's so bad,
just
Jastin.
hating, man. You just hate on just one CGI part.
You have. Man, that was a lot of the movie, Jastin.
Oh.
I just like it. It's Robert De Niro at the age of like 82 going, I'm a 22-year-old Irishman. Moving like an old man and shit. That's right up there with Roberto Benigni as Pinocchio.
Why couldn't you use your imagination and imagine him younger?
Because it's a fucking movie. They're supposed to do that for me. I wouldn't read no book. This ain't no D&D. This ain't the theater of the mind, motherfucker. It's the theater of the theater.
I still haven't even seen that movie.
You ain't missing shit.
It's great. It's great, sis.
It's honestly, it's just the way that it's 3.5 hours, I think. Right?
Just cut it in half.
It's
you know how to cut a pie. Just do the same thing.
It's 3.5 hours long.
Hour and a half. Bam.
And then you still got 30 minutes left over. All right, you know how like Killers of the Flower Moon was long, but it was like, what's the word? Compelling. Yeah, it's the opposite of that. It's 3.5 hours long and boring as fuck.
Don't listen to him. You got to watch for yourself.
All I'm saying,
he might be the only person that thinks that about The Irishman.
Bullshit.
In the world.
Bullshit.
He might be the only person on the planet that thinks that.
I'm not gonna lie. I still want to walk up to Martin Scorsese and before I shake his hand, I want to slap him across the face for making The Irishman.
Don't say that.
I'll give him a hug afterwards and go, thanks for all the other things you did. But then I'd have to slap him again because I'm like, but you made The Irishman.
Don't do that. All right, Robert De Niro gonna beat you up like he beat up that store owner.
That motherfucker would break a hip before he'd kick me.
I mean,
did you see that preview where he's playing two people? Robert De Niro?
Yes.
Man, he's just... Is he ever going to stop? I mean, he just continues to just find juicy roles.
You hope so. You hope so. You hope it's a juicy role, Jastin. What if it's two no juices, though? What if you go and watch it and then afterwards you're like, man, I'm parched. I need some juice. Because of how unjuicy that was.
I mean, I do feel like he's sort of the definition of like he's going to work till he dies. The man's like 81 years old.
He just
Same as Al Pacino.
I still think
I
that's going to be
mean,
Tom Cruise. I think Tom Cruise is going to die making a movie,
mm,
doing one of his stunts.
I could see that.
Like, I have a feeling in every one of his contracts, he's got it written that if I die making a movie, you better show that movie in theaters with my death in it. You will
Oh yeah.
you rewrite the script to have my character die, and that you show that movie. It'd be really funny if he was doing like a biopic. He dies and it's about a guy that's still alive. It's just in his contract that they got to rewrite the movie that guy that's still alive died.
We work it around Tom Cruise, everybody. That's the deal.
Oh, the moroseness of that just brought me joy. I don't know why.
I'm scared for him in Mission Impossible. I think Ethan's gonna die, and I don't want him to die.
That motherfucker dying, dude. He dying.
Everything about that preview says
The motherfucker's dying.
he's dying. I mean, everything about that preview. Everything about that preview. You know, it's not one choice, it's the sum of your choices. I mean, everything. I
Dude.
love the preview, but everything about it says he's dying in this one. This is it.
Have you ever been more sure that a character's dying in a movie? Like, even in something like John dies in the end, and he does. Like, I'm still more sure that Ethan Hunt's dying. Like, I'm more sure that Ethan Hunt is going to die in that movie than the fact that there will be snakes on a plane and snakes in a plane.
Man, that's more than 100%.
Yeah. I've just never been more sure of anything in my life than Ethan Hunt dying in a movie. Like, I'm just like, yep, motherfucking dying. They're all like, this is the culmination of everything you've ever done, Ethan Hunt. I'm like, that motherfucker dead.
Man,
That's what the character's saying to him as Ethan Hunt's bleeding out. Like, just gone.
is that what we heard the voiceover at the secret funeral? We heard some voiceover stuff that somebody is saying at his funeral.
Like, that's just
No.
that's just him like on the ground bleeding out, and that's just the villain saying that shit to him. Just, this is the sum of you. Yeah.
Don't die, Ethan. Don't die.
I know, but it'd be fitting though. I have no doubts that it'd be the one of the best cinematic deaths out there. Like, one of the most meaningful deaths in a movie. I think him dying in that movie is more important than Old Yeller dying at the end of that one.
Damn.
I'm just saying, when Ethan Hunt does die in the next one, I'm probably gonna cry a little bit. I'm probably gonna get a tear. I spent so much of my life going, I love you, Ethan Hunt.
It's going to be sad. If he does die, it's going to be sad. But hopefully he goes out like a G. He needs to go out like Tony Stark did or something.
Oh, dude, he's gonna go out saving the world, dude.
He's got to go out like a G.
He's gonna be saving the world and get no credit for it because the world won't even know he saved it.
Mm-hmm.
And he wouldn't have it any other way.
Yep. That's Ethan Hunt.
Well, that's a real bummer.
You're welcome.
On slightly related news, the Broccoli family, the renowned Broccoli family, and if you don't know who that is, they are the people that have controlled James Bond forever. Announced today that they are giving up creative control to Amazon on James Bond.
Interesting.
Mind blowing.
Is that kind of like them saying, you know, Daniel Craig was our last run of it, so you guys do what you want now?
Ish. I mean, like Amazon, because Amazon bought MGM a few years ago, and MGM is the studio behind James Bond, but the Broccoli's have to sign off on everything. It's Barbara Broccoli and her half brother. They have to sign off on everything when it comes to James Bond. And I mean, last year, Barbara Broccoli was calling Amazon executives fucking idiots because they wanted to turn James Bond into content and all this shit. And somehow, I don't know how many billions of dollars they probably shoved in that old woman's face. But they're signing off that Amazon MGM is getting full creative control of James Bond. Now they will be producers. So they're going to make money. They'll get money. But they have no creative say in James Bond anymore.
Wow.
Mind-boggling. Like, I almost did not believe that article because of how much shit she was talking about fucking Amazon. So I'm just like, the amount of billions that are coming her way is just unheard of, probably. I wonder if Jeff Bezos dipped into his hundreds of billions and just went, you're both going to just, like, her and her half brother, it's like, both of you just get 50 bill. Let's call it a day. I'm not going to lie. I'd sell myself for $50 billion. I don't have that kind of integrity.
Do you have a soul to sell?
Fair. That's how much I'd be winning that deal.
Basically, that's a win-win for you.
To me, that's the equivalent of, they're paying me, $50 billion for me to blow them a kiss. Which is like, all right, fair enough.
Sterling's like,
I don't know if I should be
you.
offended by that statement. I'm not. Let's be clear. I'm not.
Of course not.
But I feel like I should be.
Yeah, I think if maybe you hadn't on here before been like, I don't have a soul, then maybe you would be more upset.
I don't think I've ever said that on the podcast. I might have heavily implied it, but I don't think I've ever said that phrase.
I don't know. I feel like in some variety you've said it. Maybe not. Maybe it is just heavily implied.
Yeah, maybe just a heavy implication for sure.
I mean, maybe it's like, I'm sure I've said something to the degree of like, well, I'm okay if I have a soul and I'm wrong about things because that just means my bestie is going to get my soul in the end. I could see that. I'm not going to lie, guys. I was thinking the other day. I don't remember if we talked about this on the podcast or if this was the day we were supposed to record and we didn't. And we just talked for an hour and a half anyway. About, once again, the phrase, get behind me, Satan. I can't tell you how much that statement plagues my mind. Because I've been trying to think about it. Because people say that in church. And they mean that as get behind me. Like, not today. I'm going to beat you. To me, it just sounds like I need a helping hand, Satan. Get behind me. Lift me up. Support me. I think about that all the time, guys. All the time.
And it's funny because, like, I remember you talking about that, and I had never thought of the phrase that way before, but now I'm like, no, that makes sense. Like, that does sound like that.
Like, legit, the first time I ever heard somebody say that in a church, I was about as confused as anyone could ever be in a church. Because I was legit sitting there going, man, you're in church and going, support me, devil. Mind boggled. I didn't understand.
I imagine us in a line. Like maybe we're both trying to get a PS5 and I'm like, you can't cut, you can't cut, Satan.
I like that idea. You can't cut in front of me, Satan.
Get behind me.
Yeah, get behind me. You weren't it. Get behind me, man. It's my place in line. Like that.
Maybe that's what they meant. Like, I'm the first in line, Satan. You get behind me, you're number 2 in line.
He'd be so mad. He'd be like, "Oh, alabaster boxes," or I don't know how does Satan curse? I don't know.
I'm going to go out on a limb and just say he says the word fuck.
I feel like that's too human, though. I feel like he'd say something better than that, though. Like they have their own words and stuff. That we
I
don't
like
even
this,
know
the
about.
idea that like Satan is, you know, with his reputation, and like the worst thing he could say is, "Oh, alabaster box." That's such a great thought. Oh man.
That also would be funny though. If the devil was one of those people that just didn't curse, he's all, "Oh, mother of pearl."
Yeah, that would be just nobody thinks about it. Nobody thinks otherwise of him. So let's prove him
HE double
wrong.
hockey sticks.
I just figure he wouldn't like him. I mean, you know, good stuff. I mean, I just don't think he'd be a fan of him.
Or he's in his own version of the good place where they send him to heaven and he just can't say those words because you can't say that there.
He's all, "Oh, fork."
Yeah. Have you seen that, Jastin? That's a good show.
No, I need to.
Good Place is a very good show, Jastin.
Mm.
Very good. Very good.
Oh man, that's all I'm going to think about now is, oh, alabaster box. It's the worst Satan can say.
I just like that it's an alabaster box.
Yeah.
I'm not even quite sure what alabaster is, guys. I just know alabaster is one of the names of Dante's swords from Devil May Cry. And I know there's a magic card called Alabaster Potion. And that's about all I know.
I thought it was like a form of like clay or a form of like material that you make stuff with.
It's from the Bible. Or that's what I'm referencing, where I think it was the story about the woman like takes the alabaster box and anoints Jesus with like,
yeah, she's got her perfume in the alabaster jar.
In the alabaster. Yeah. That's why I said it.
Oh, it's just a translucent,
trying to be clever.
Yeah, or white made of alabaster. Sorry, it's just this definition.
It's just a mineral.
Yeah. Typically like a fine grain, translucent, typically white mineral.
Yeah. See, of course, he wouldn't like that. So.
And then there's a town in Alabama that's called Alabaster.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And that just doesn't surprise me that a town in Alabama is like, "Hey, we white." It's probably the most on-brand thing that Alabama's ever done. Anyway.
Oh, I didn't know a sinful woman used it one time. But in Luke, a sinful woman brings it.
Yeah, I think that's the I don't remember her name or whatever, but yeah, I think she poured out the perfume onto his feet in front of the Pharisees, I think is what it was.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Yes.
And so he was like, "Oh, your sins are forgiven because you gave me everything that was important to you." So something along those lines. But yeah.
That's right. And I remember the song, The Alabaster Box. It was about that story. I forget who sings it or if it's just like one of those, maybe it's just one of those church songs that was like at my church, but there was a song called The Alabaster Box and it was about that story, anointing the feet and whatnot.
Yeah. Maybe it's by Kirk Franklin. He sings everything.
No wonder I've never heard of that fucking song.
Shoot, it could be. It could be. And then I think there are places where they do that, though. Aren't there churches where they anoint feet and they do the perfume thing? And
most likely. That sounds probable.
I wonder what is it exactly? Because I don't imagine it's perfume like
I mean, I've heard of the people that will they'll do the whole ceremony of like washing feet, but I don't know if that's what you're talking about. Like being the servant and washing the feet as the disciples did. But anyway,
Yeah, I could be mixing things up. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of, and I'm mixing up stories. It could be that. But anyway, that's why I said, "Oh, alabaster box," because I just figured, you know, Satan wouldn't be a fan of that.
it's the worst thing Satan can think of.
That's how I know he would be mad. That's how I know he was mad about me making him get behind me in line. Said that.
He kept saying that.
I'm not gonna lie. I tuned you guys out a little bit. And you guys just kept talking about alabaster boxes. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck they talk about. Oh. On a slightly more topical bit of news here, after this tangent that you two went on, I've actually been saving this news for this episode. A couple of weeks ago, somebody asked Anthony Mackie what Captain America meant to him. And he said things like honesty, doing what you say you'll do, all kinds of stuff like that, you know. And then one of the things he said was, not necessarily America. And I'm not going to lie, guys, a lot of people of a certain persuasion got very upset about that. Because they're like, but it's in the name. It's in the name America. Or America's in the name, therefore it has to represent that. Because, you know, that's how things work in all times. And it was particularly telling on these people. Because for the people that don't remember, Chris Evans, about like 6 years ago, when asked the same question, said pretty much the same fucking thing. Not a peep. People were peepless about it.
Wow.
Not a peep. I haven't quite been able to figure out what the difference is between Anthony Mackie and Chris Evans saying that. But I feel like there's something that is very telling as to what that could be. It's almost also like that's not part of the theme of the fucking movie, too. It's crazy. Do you guys remember some years ago when in the comics, when Sam Wilson became Captain America in the comics for a little bit, one of his first issues, he punches a Nazi, like an actual, like in the comic Nazi, like white supremacist. And people were so mad about it. They were like, this ain't the Captain America I grew up with. And I'm just sitting here thinking, isn't that the exact Captain America we grew up with? Isn't that like one of the defining characteristics of Captain America? He punches Nazis.
Yep.
Because even in like the 70s and the 80s, when there weren't Nazis, well, you know what I mean. There were Nazis, but he was still just constantly punching the Red Skull. And he's hella Nazi. Like, I'm actually somewhat offended that Anthony Mackie didn't bring that up as something that, like, what Captain America means to him. Because I feel like that is a defining characteristic of what Captain America does, is punch Nazis. But yeah. We live in a fun time, guys. So fun.
That's pretty wild. Like, I don't know. I mean, I should say, wow, that's surprising, but it's not.
Yeah, same. Not a surprise anymore.
That's probably the most depressing thing about it.
Yep.
is that you're not surprised. Oh. In a slightly more positive note before we move on to the movie. Penta was in red this week, guys. Penta looked good in red. That's all I'm saying. Penta looked good in red. Although, I don't know if I want him feuding with Pete Dunne. As somebody that has only watched wrestling intermittently, I don't know who the fuck Pete Dunne is.
I was about to say, who is that?
I know he was like, wasn't he in a faction with Sheamus?
Yeah, for a little bit.
Yeah.
Before that, though, he was a demon on NXT, man. Like, he's really, really awesome. It's just that when he got the main roster, he's been on and off TV. He's just kind of one of those people, like right now, kind of in TV purgatory. But he's so good that he's gonna be a good, like, stepping stone. I hate to put it that way.
Oh yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong.
That's just, the upward trajectory. He's one of those people that Penta could have a good match with, but also beat so you can anticipate higher level opponents after him.
Yeah.
But
I mean, both Penta Pete Dunne matches I've seen were great. They were great matches. But like you were talking about, Jastin, like almost that stepping stone type of thing. I need Penta to move on. I don't need Penta to have a third match with fucking Pete Dunne. Like, I don't want Penta to get in this weird 3-way storyline / rivalry with Ludwig and Pete Dunne. I need him to move past that real quick. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, all right, he's done it. Let's move on to the next one. But like I said, looked great in red. Loved it. Loved the red. Also, shout out to shirt maker Johnny Cupcakes. He did a collaboration with AMC Theaters, and that's where I got this shirt. And if anybody hadn't seen, like we had talked about it last week with the kitten that that passed away, Ahmed. She was a black cat. That's actually another reason why I got this shirt and I'm wearing it tonight. It's her eating some popcorn. Cool. But I got it from a movie theater, so movie theater. All right, we gonna go on this voyage. We gonna go on a trek to visit a brave new world now, guys.
Yes, we're ready.
Somebody will listen to me. Nobody knows anything but you. All right. Are you ready? Yes. Come on.
Cinema Slayers.
Hey, Cinefans, and welcome back to another episode of the Cinema Slayers podcast. I'm Sterling, and as always, I'm joined by Heather and Jastin. And tonight we're going to talk about what we liked, didn't like, and everything in between with the new MCU movie. It's been a while since we've gotten a proper MCU movie, guys. We're going to go Captain America, Brave New World. We will go spoiler-free recommendations and scores, and then into a more spoiler-centric section with time codes in the description, both audio and video formats, to allow you to jump around if you so require. And with all that, all right, Jast, I've been really thinking about this. Who's our resident Captain America expert? That's my problem too. Because I feel like I might have read more Captain America comics than you. And as much as I love Winter Soldier, because it's still, to me, my favorite MCU movie. I feel like you've watched the Captain America movies more than me as a whole. So do we split the
Maybe?
difference and say Heather?
Yes.
All right, Heather, what you got?
Nice. I was like, I'm not going to even be in the running on this one with the two of you, but
You want
yeah. Um, this movie was okay. It was fine. There were parts of it that were stronger than other parts of it. It's not nearly as like tragic as I was hearing it was. Like I just heard people really didn't like this one, but it's not all that bad. It's completely fine. It kind of it sits in the middle of a lot of the other movies, especially as of lately. But I think that um it the problem with this movie is unfortunately because of me seeing the trailer, it just kind of it lacks any sort of like build up or tension because I feel like they kind of give away a lot before you even like get to see the movie. Um but like the best part of it was like that underlying message that we get from Sam about the difficulties of, bearing the weight he specifically has to carry. And I think with the I guess what I do like is that with it specifically being Sam, who is Captain America now and is a Black Captain America, I did like that the writer and director of this one is Black. And I think maybe that's why those parts of the film felt a little bit more real and better written. When he had those certain moments of dialogue or monologuing that he did that spoke to that specifically. But aside from those like little nuggets of truth in there, the rest of the movie is just kind of your standard recent MCU action movies. It's fine, not offensively bad in any sort of way, but it's also just not special necessarily in any way either. I do think like our Sam and Joaquin, I think was his name. I think they were good characters together, and I really enjoyed their dynamic in the film. But aside from them, I feel like almost all of the other characters were not really standout. Like President Thunderbolt was okay, but again, unfortunately, I didn't find anything about his character intriguing because like I kind of already knew what was coming. So I wasn't like super invested in learning about it because I knew where it was headed. But Harrison Ford is Harrison Ford, so he was good as that character, I would say. But yeah, I mean, the action was pretty good. The last act to me felt very abrupt when compared to sort of the buildup for me. They packed so much into like, I think the last 15 minutes or so of the film. And I think maybe that could have unfolded in a better way to make it just a little bit more well-rounded. But I don't know, would I want more from this movie? Sure. But I think that's sort of always my hope these days with Marvel films is I'm hoping for more because I know we've all seen more from them in the past. But it's, it's not like it was a letdown for me because I didn't really have any sort of high expectations of this movie going into it, which is no offense to the characters or anything, just in general, how MCU has been lately. But it's better than some of the other ones lately, I would say. But it's really just kind of pretty close to right down the middle for me in almost every regard. But again, it's not a terrible movie. So,
Jastin, what you got?
all right. So it's interesting because before this movie even came out, I was already hearing a lot of negative news. And there were all these reports of test screenings not going really well and them having to do a ton of reshoots on the movie um, prior to its release. So I heard about a lot of the course correcting and things like that that they tried to do with this movie. So you're hearing all of that. And a lot of people were already kind of, so some of that was troubling. And then also, though, I think that there was just this vocal, maybe it was a minority or maybe it was a majority of people that just were already kind of hating on the movie before it came out and saying, why is this guy Captain America? And a lot of the comments just were some of the stuff Sterling talked about, the common responses of people who were just like, why is this black guy Captain America? And then, of course, you know, you got people in chats fighting back and forth going, well, you obviously don't read comics because Sam has been Captain America. But then you had other people going, well, I don't like that it was Anthony Mackie. He's nowhere near as good as the Winter Soldier. Why wasn't Winter Soldier's also being Captain America? Why wasn't it him? So you got people arguing on both sides of it and saying, well, the already just kind of writing this movie off. And when you're hearing all of this stuff, it's kind of hard to discern what the truth is. Are we hating on this because it's a black Captain America? Or was there something really, is the movie really bad? So that's why they did all these reshoots. Was there a, what is the truth of all of it? And I guess, and then when you look at the critic score, the critic score right now, Rotten Tomatoes, is 49%. That is really low. Like, that's super low. That is one of the lowest, like, critic scores I've seen for a Marvel movie. Like, that's only 2 points higher than Eternals, just to put that in perspective.
And with that, just because you brought it up right now, knee-jerk reaction. Is it 2 points better than Eternals? Or more than or less than or what? You know what I mean? Just like, what is your thought, like, just on that specifically? Do you think that's accurate?
No, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't. Like, I really don't. And like, when you look at that, okay, so the critic score is 49%. The fan score is 80%. I would say my truth is somewhere in between that. It's kind of where I landed. Kind of to your point, Heather, I don't think that this is a bad movie, but it's not a great movie. There are some things that I think are pretty good in it, but there are definitely some things I would have done better. I would have done differently. There are some parts of it too that I found disappointing because in preparation for this movie, I went back and watched Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And boy, was that a fun watch. Going back and watching that. And then I got to this movie and the realization is that I should have watched The Incredible Hulk.
Well, there's that. But then also, to me, they retread a little bit too much on Falcon and Winter Soldier in this too. Like, there's some specific plot points in that show that you're like, all right, cool. They moved past that plot point. Nope. It's a point in this movie too. And I'm just like,
yeah,
oh,
I get some of that, but I found it disappointing that there were so many characters in that. There were so many things that they set up in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And it was just interesting that we kind of went another direction and didn't follow up with any of those things. And I understand that Bucky is going to be in the Thunderbolts, and I understand that Wyatt Russell is going to be in the Thunderbolts and everything like that. So I get it. And who knows? I might enjoy that movie. I don't want to like make a judgment call on that or anything before it comes out. Maybe the ends will justify the means here. But I do find some of the decisions weird that at times this felt like Sam Wilson stuck in the continuation of the Incredible Hulk. So that's kind of weird. Um, I even watching the movie, I could tell. Well, I'm not going to say I could tell or I could guess it with 100% accuracy, but I imagine that a lot of the reshooting might have been in the first half of this, trying to exposit and re-explain and trying to like kind of uh, uh, incorporate these incorporate these things in an expository way when some of these things are from a film that is 20 years old. You know what I mean? So this is kind of just that weird movie where it's you're on one end, it's nice to see them bringing back things that we set up in other movies that just seemed like for the longest time we were never going to get any payoffs on, or we were wondering, are they ever going to be incorporated? Like there's speaking of Eternals, there's something from Eternals from here where it's like, oh man, we're finally going to do something with that, or oh, they're bringing back this person that was from it. But I think these things are from so long ago. Like maybe if the Incredible Hulk had come out a couple of years ago, last year or something like that, might have been maybe a little more invested. But when you're watching this, I don't know about y'all, but I'm watching it and it's like they're bringing up these things and I'm like, and sometimes it takes a second for you to go, what is he from? And you're trying to remember wait, what? I do remember this. I remember some of this, but you know, you're having to like really think back. And some of this stuff was stuff from, like I'm saying, movies from years ago, years and years ago. So all of the fresh stuff that we sort of set up in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, a lot of that stuff wasn't in this or was maybe glanced over. There were a few continuations of things, like we got some characters that are back in this. But I don't know, man. I just question how we did this story and the tie-ins that we had. I just wonder if we should have had different ones. But by nature of what this is, if this is kind of what we're going to get going forward, there may be more movies like this where stuff from years and years ago is going to come back because we're trying to tie it all together to get to our next Avengers movies. And that might make or break some of these future movies, just depending on what it is, how fresh it is, how compelling those things were when Marvel left them off. So I don't know, man. This feels like we might be setting up for some more kind of hit and miss type of movies. And that's what this kind of was to me. There were some things that I thought hit. I think Anthony Mackie was still good as Captain America. I think he plays the role well. I was happy that he got this first solo movie to really show that he is the person for the shield. And I think he was every bit the Captain America he needed to be. I like Joaquin Torres, and Danny Ramirez does a respectable job, but I think I would have written him a little differently. I get that he's the comedy and he's supposed to be like the antithesis sort of, or like the opposite personality of Anthony Mackie. But I feel like I would have wrote his role and ultimately what happens to him. I think I would have made him a little stronger. Like, I think I would have, like, I remember how strong Sam was in The Winter Soldier. When Cap met him, when Cap befriended him, when Cap teamed up with him, and by the end of that, you understood why they were teammates. I really wish that Joaquin Torres had gotten a similar treatment. And I think there were some missed opportunities in the third act for him that we didn't capitalize on. So, I don't think he's as strong as he should have been. I really thought Harrison Ford was good. I really thought he was. I liked his portrayal of Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross. There's a lot of layers to the character. There's a lot going on with this character, and I thought that he played the character well. But to your point, Heather, man, I wish we didn't know about the Red Hulk. God, I wish that could have been a surprise. Man, if that could have been a surprise. And I get it. Some comic book fans would have probably known that that was coming, but still, if it was a surprise.
For people like me, not knowing that,
but
I would have been like, that's incredible, or oh my goodness, or something.
Yeah, but for like most people, just most of your casuals and people that don't know that though, man, that would have played so much better in this movie. And last few things, Sterling, I'll let you go. But I did like the fight with the Hulk. I think that's the best fight of the film. I thought that the fight with the Red Hulk was badass. Though I would have changed, but I still would have done some things differently with it. I still would have changed a few things about it, especially based on this narrative that they gave us. Some of the side characters were okay, but none of them were strong enough to where it's like, oh, I'm looking forward to them in other movies. I don't know if they made a big enough impact. You know what I mean? Like, there's a person in here and it's like, oh, well, she's a former something of someone we're familiar with. And that person just really just doesn't make the impact of the former person that used to be that person. That's vague as fuck, but I'm pretty sure everybody know. The two people that watch the YouTube know what I'm talking about.
The thing is, I've got a lot to say about that too. There's a lot of stuff with these characters that we can expound upon later with that.
Yeah. So I'll just make it quick. So, I mean, overall, is it a 50% movie? No. Is it an 80% movie? No. It's over the 50, but it's under the 80 for me. It's fine. Like you said, Heather, it's passable. We have seen worse MCU movies. We've seen far worse than this. But I will say on some levels, being a Captain America movie and being just the quality of Captain America movies that we have gotten over the history of Marvel, it is disappointing that this follow-up couldn't have been better just because of what we've gotten from Captain America.
Which is no reflection on Anthony Mackie as Captain America.
No, it's not a reflection on him. And there were even some things about it that were very Winter Soldier-y. But because of other shit that we had in the movie, we kind of had to get away from that. And that kind of, when it was being Winter Soldier-y, I think it was better than when it wasn't being, when it was being Marvel-y, you know? So we just couldn't perfectly balance all of these things. So ultimately you get a passable movie, you get an okay movie, but not a great Captain America movie like I wanted.
I think this movie suffers from 4 drastically huge problems. Problem number 1. Red Hulk. Not the Red Hulk's in the movie. The fact that the Red Hulk is the focus of every piece of advertisement for this movie.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, they literally built their entire advertising campaign for this movie around the last 10 minutes of this fucking movie. It is crazy. Problem number 2. is this movie is most accurately probably described as The Incredible Hulk 2 starring Captain America. And like Jastin said, that movie came out so long ago. And it is so wildly different of an MCU now. There are people that are not sure if The Incredible Hulk counts as an MCU movie. Because most of the people in that movie are not in anything anymore. One's because, William Hurt passed away. That's why we get Harrison Ford. But then Edward Norton got fired. So essentially, your two leads of that movie are not in the MCU anymore, but somehow this is practically a fucking sequel. Because half of the threads of this movie are from that. And that's very weird when the name on the fucking poster is Captain America. Very weird. Problem number 3. To me, it retread too much on things we've seen in the Captain America universe. I weirdly think this is too Winter Soldier-esque. I get what you're saying, Jastin, about those being the best scenes. I'm not necessarily even disagreeing with that. It's just my problem is I saw it done better in Winter Soldier. And then on top of that, too, I feel like this movie dips into Falcon and the Winter Soldier too much. I don't think they moved enough forward to allow and to expand to what Anthony Mackie could legitimately bring to that character. I thought that they rehashed a little bit too much of, but what if of the past? Instead of just giving him his own full, unique Captain America movie to, no pun intended, spread his wings. And number 4. This movie was reshot to fucking death. And you can feel it. They ain't hiding it. You can feel and see the reshoots throughout this movie. And I think it tore it up. As much as you might have test screens and this and that, and people not like this and that, whatever. I have to just believe that was still better than this. Because I feel like so much of this movie just feels like a panic. They're like, oh no, they don't like it. Let's change this and change that and change this and change that. And now this movie's a shell of anything. Which is disappointing. Because Anthony Mackie's great. The guy that plays Joaquin Torres was great. I do agree with you, Jastin. They didn't do that as well as they should have. As compared to what they did with Anthony Mackie as the Falcon. And he's now Falcon Jr. or whatever the fuck they want to call him. They didn't do as well as they should have with that. It's not horrible, but it's a little lacking. Harrison Ford was great. I agree with you, Jess. I thought Harrison Ford really knocked a lot of it out of the park. But the best thing that they could have done with it is hidden the Red Hulk. I mean, it would have been great. Heather would have been surprised and been like, oh shit, there's a red one. And I would have been sitting there knowing it was coming the whole time. But at least me knowing it's coming the whole time would have been like a little treat for me. It wouldn't have been disappointing like it kind of ended up being because of the promotional materials. It would have been a treat because I would have been like sitting in there going, you motherfuckers don't know what's coming. I know what's coming. I know who the original Red Hulk in the comics was. I read those issues as they came out. And I would have known it was coming the whole fucking movie. And been like, ho, ho, ho. It's a dirty little secret between me and Kevin Feige. But no, We all knew it was coming. We were all waiting for it to come. And somehow you give us the shortest MCU movie that's ever been made. And you still wait till the last 10 minutes to give us what we're waiting for, the whole fucking movie. So you end up feeling like you're waiting too fucking long. Like if that was the midpoint of the movie or something like that, and then you have to like find out who did that to him and all this other stuff, maybe that would have actually played out better. If he explodes into the Red Hulk halfway through the movie, you have that fight, they have to put him down, and then the rest of the movie is them tracking down who did that to him. I think would have played better, considering your entire promotional campaign was, guys, it is the Red Hulk. Yeah, Captain America's in it too, but fuck, it is the Red Hulk. I agree. I like some of the action. Some of it fell a little flat to me. And then you have Giancarlo Esposito in this movie. And that man is fantastic. That man is a treat to watch on a screen. And yet, that was the role you gave him? Sidewinder? For those who don't know, I could say this for spoilers, I don't care. There is a world-renowned wrestler under the name of Seth Rollins, who was originally cast in this movie and filmed scenes for this movie to play the character of King Cobra. Also, the leader of the Snake Society or whatever, the Serpent Society. And when Giancarlo Esposito got free, they were like, oh, well, let's just use him. Let's just erase all of the scenes we've already filmed with these other people in the Serpent Society. And let's just replace all that with Giancarlo Esposito as Sidewinder. Why? This is what you use him for? As just a guy with a gun? That's it? You take one of the better actors available right now, one of the few that have not been in an MCU movie, and you go, guy with a gun. Yeah. For like, what, 6 minutes? That is your big plan? You're like, fuck, guys, we could get Giancarlo in here. Let's fuck all this other shit. Let's just destroy all that money we spend. And let's spend some more money to film this man walking around with a gun. Got it. Mind-boggling. I will say this, though. It's way better in Eternals, man. It's way better than Ant-Man and the Wasp and the Kang, or whatever the fuck that movie's called. It's better than Love and Thunder.
Yeah.
Like, at least with Giancarlo Esposito, and I know this might be spoiled, I don't care. At least he's alive at the end of this movie. Theoretically, we could get him in Cap 5 at least. It's not like how they wasted Christian Bale. And we'll never get that motherfucker back.
And yet, yeah, he was still the best thing about that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we'll never get him back. Does this mean in 18 years we're finally going to get Hercules from Thor Love and Thunder? If we keep up this track record with them bringing back characters that they introduce in a movie, just that many years later, it's what? So it's 2008. So yeah, 17 years later, is that when we're going to get Hercules in a movie? And he's going to be like the villain for like, I don't know, Spider-Man.
And if it's the same guy that they put in that movie, bro is not young.
Yeah.
Brett Goldstein is wonderful, but he is not young.
You remember in the first Spider-Man movie, they teased the Scorpion? Are we going to get him in 10 years fighting Doctor Strange? What the fuck are they doing with this shit? It's absurd. Some of the choices they made for this movie. I do not get it. I feel like there's just better ways to utilize this shit. Like, I don't know. The Serpent Society is a classic villain for Captain America. Why do you need 2 Hulk villains? 2 to be in this movie. Like, why weren't those the people in fucking She-Hulk? You remember in She-Hulk when there was that random guy that turned into a Hulk? Why wasn't that just one of these guys instead? Like, realistically speaking, like, you know, it's crazy putting Hulk characters in the Hulk movies. And don't get me wrong, I know that that's not always a thing in the comics. People fight each other's villains all the time. I 100% understand that. But at least sometimes in the comics, the reasoning's a little better. And it's not the Red Hulk is not the Hulk villain I'm talking about. It's the other Hulk villain in this movie that is more of my why. Like, why was that the one that needed to be in this movie? And it's not that they did a bad job as portraying that character. I think they just did a bad job of integrating that character into this. Also, that guy said the word probability so many times. You would have thought his name was Jimmy Probabilities with as many times as he was saying it. And don't get me wrong, I'm not the most familiar person in the world with that character. I don't think I've ever seen him say the word probabilities in a comic ever, though. And you would think it's his catchphrase.
It's a handsome word. I mean, people you like to say it. You like to hear it.
Man, that motherfucker said it like it was his kink, though. Like, he said it like it was turning him on. And he wanted to be creepy about it. Like, he knew you knew it turned him on. And he's just like, probability. You're like, oh, man, that guy's getting chubbed up just sitting over there saying that. He's like, yeah, probability.
But when you hear that, you don't just like think, smart son of a bitch.
No. Not at all. No.
What about smart motherfucker?
No.
What about he's of high intelligence?
Nope.
When you hear somebody say that,
no.
You don't think that?
No. Not once.
Not once.
That's just not how I go.
It's not how it goes.
No.
Interesting.
Man, but they love saying how smart he was, though. Ooh. They love saying it. I think that ultimately that was my problem, Jastin, is he broke the Jastin rule. That motherfucker kept saying how smart he was, but he wasn't being smart. He wasn't showing smart. He was saying. I mean, that motherfucker was treating it like we talked about earlier, in the theater of the mind. He's like, guys, just use your imagination. I'm smart as shit, dude. Just pretend. Just pretend I'm smart. I ain't gonna show you an ounce of intelligence, but dude, Just imagine how smart I am, though.
I mean, you look at him, he looked pretty smart. He looked, I mean, the brain was big.
Oh, okay.
The cranium.
The cranium.
The cranium was Maximus. So, you just like, dang, that cranius maximus or whatever you call it. Just looked big.
Hey. But, he only used like 10% of that big brain, though. You know that saying? That like human beings only use 10% of their brains or whatever? They made that whole movie based on that, Limitless. He's like, I use the other 90% of my brain. Do you remember that movie?
Yep.
Yeah.
You know what's really funny about that? Do you know where that saying came from? Just a motherfucker saying it.
That's tight.
There's just no evidence of that ever being a thing. It's just somebody said it.
I mean, what is the probability of that happening?
Pretty damn high, actually. A lot of people just say shit and people believe it. That's a very, very common thing.
Yeah, it's a common thing.
People die because of that, people. People die because of that. Let's not even get into like dictators and like war criminals and all that other stuff. Regular ass people die from that.
That's so tight that he said it though and got people to believe it.
You know how people you know how people say that like with fingerprints, no one ever has like duplicate fingerprints ever. Every fingerprint's unique. You know how people say that?
Mm-hmm.
You know who thought of that?
Who?
The guy that came up with fingerprinting. Do you know what he based that on?
What?
He just thought that was true. You know what's not true? That's not true.
He was close. No, not close.
I was trying to think of a way that he could have been close. But I mean, I think the closest thing he said that's accurate in that statement is that people have fingerprints. I think that's what he was close to. He like nailed that part. It's just everything else was wrong.
Okay.
And people have died because of fingerprints. Have you ever heard on a crime show where they analyze the bite, like somebody bites someone and they analyze it and they're like, oh yeah, we matched it to the dental records?
Yeah.
You know it's not a thing? That. Not a thing. Do you know who came up with that? A guy that just said, I can do it. And then he did it and they're like, man. He's like, yep, I'm the king of it. And then just started doing it a lot until like actual scientists looked at it and they're like, wait, this isn't a thing. And then they were like, hey, guy, why did you say this was a thing? It's not. And he's like, I don't know. So many things exist just because people said it. Like alpha wolves. That's not a thing. When there's some guy's like, I'm an alpha male. Nothing at all. Or if they even it's even better when they go, oh yeah, I'm like an alpha wolf. Nothing. So the guy that came up with that theory was like looking at wolves in captivity, like at a zoo. I was like, oh, see, hierarchy. And then when he went and looked at wolves in nature, he's like, see, look, those two wolves, they're in charge of all the other wolves. And then he realized, oh, that wasn't an alpha male. That was the mom and dad wolf with their cubs. Like, it wasn't that he was just like, I'm the biggest and the strongest. No, he was just the dad. And so, like, yeah, the wolf cubs, like, more or less just listened to their dad. That's all it was. But he came out and was like, guys, my paper, when I talked about alpha wolves, is wrong. Don't listen to it. It's not a thing. But notice how everybody just keeps saying it's a thing. The guy that came up with it is like, please stop. I was wrong. I actually care about science. I was wrong. Nope. Nobody even listens to that. Do you know why? Because other motherfuckers just say, I'm an alpha. And they buy into it. And that's what this movie was. This motherfucker just kept going, man, I'm smart. And then they go, hey, can you do something smart? And he goes, the probability of that is yes. And they went, fuck. Some might call him a leader of men. See what I did there?
Nice.
I don't give a fuck, guys. We're talking about the leader. The guy's name's the leader. Recommendations and scores.
Yep.
Yes.
Recommendations and score.
What you got, Jastin?
I mean, I guess I'll go ahead and give it a recommend. Like, maybe not strong. Like, you could watch this at home. You could watch this anywhere, but it's not bad enough for me to say avoid it. So typically, I will not recommend something that I think is bad, and that doesn't really match the description of this. But it is by no means a must see. It's not like you got to run to the theater and see it. Though it did reasonably well at the box office. I think it made like 200 million.
I know it made
Worldwide.
90 in domestic.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to say worldwide it's like 200 something. The budget was like what, 180 or something like that. So
All right. I was going to talk about that in spoilers, but fuck, that is bullshit. It was 180 before they did all these reshoots. Come on.
oh, that's true. I didn't
Yeah.
even think about that.
All the reshoots they
So-
did, nah. I think they're just lying at this point.
Yeah, could be. Because, yeah, you got to consider all the money for the reshoot. So, yeah. So who knows what that means for it. But, I mean, but 200 is not a bad number. I mean, it did all right, I guess. But, you know, I wouldn't say that this is a must see. It was great. You got to go see it. If you want to wait till it gets to Disney Plus, that's fine too. It's nothing about being in the theater in that immersive environment helped or hurt it. It was just, you know, just a pretty standard mid-tier MCU movie. We've seen really bad ones. We've seen really good ones, and this is somewhere in the middle of that. It's just kind of one of those. Just one of those brancher kind of movies that is probably going to have is probably going to be more significant with something else that comes out in a better told story. But you really wish that this being the first Captain America movie, that this story would have been really good for Anthony Mackie and this new Captain America, and it wasn't quite that. So yeah, but it's good enough at least to for me to say that I'm not going to try to convince anybody to avoid it. We'll go. I give it 67. 67 vibranium wing stabs to the gut out of 100.
What you got, Heather?
Yeah, I think obviously if you're into the MCU movies, definitely you're going to want to watch this one. And again, it's not the worst one of the MCU movies as of late. And the thing is, like, Falcon and the Winter Soldier is what really like got me even more excited for Sam as Captain America, or Anthony Mackie being Sam in Captain America. And you know what I mean? Like, that was just so peak. Like, there were moments in that show where I was like, he's so fantastic. And I wanted that to be just sort of carried over into this movie. And unfortunately, I mean, the parts where he was being very like vulnerable and sincere were great, but just I think the story of Captain America wasn't what I wanted it to be following Falcon and Winter Soldier. But that being said, again, there were some things that they did fairly well here. In general, I'm just glad that Anthony Mackie sort of got his own film, even though, if we're being honest, it should have been a better solo Anthony Mackie film. But it's fine for what it is. I'm not going to say avoid it, but I'm not going to say it's necessarily a favorite of mine, even in the later MCU movies. But it's all right. And I like most of all about it, honestly, just sort of the underlying messages that we get from Captain America and his thoughts on what that weight is that he carries with it. So yeah, it's all right. It's a little bit more the middle of the road for me for certain things that they did, but not much. So I'm going to go with 55 Bucky for Congress out of 100.
It's a mess. It's a big mess. Still liked it the most things of Phase 4, though. Are we still in Phase 4? No, this is Phase 5. But I still liked it more than most things in Phase 4. I mean, the most recent MCU movie that I'd put over this, I did like the Marvels better than this. I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, of course. Yeah, no doubt better than this. I mean, this is kind of up there to me with Doctor Strange 2. I didn't like that much. Or as much as most people did, I should say. Better than Thor 4. Better than Eternals. Better than Quantumania. You know, for this being one of the first MCUs in a long time that isn't utterly galactic or just not dealing with the multiverse, I think this should have been better, because this should have been bringing the MCU back to its like roots and just giving you that self-contained story to build upon. And I think they made it a mess because they just refused to make a Hulk 2 because they don't want to give Universal any of the profits. I mean, it really felt like they just went, guys, we're just never going to make a Hulk 2, so we just got to put all the Hulk shit in all the other movies. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. The Hulk going to be in everything else. If it's a movie, it's got to have the Hulk in it. I'm kind of splitting the difference between you guys, honestly. Oh yeah, I guess I recommend it, but I'm kind of like Jastin. You don't got to run to the theater. I think with those other MC movies we talked about, when I'm like, I didn't even like them. I think the whole thing was, just watch it on Disney Plus if you want. I think this one is at least pay attention to when it comes out on Disney Plus and just watch it like the first day. Don't wait to watch it on Disney Plus, but you can wait to watch it on Disney Plus. But once it's there, if you haven't seen it, watch it. So that puts the CineScore, guys. I didn't even. Sorry.
I was going to say, what was yours?
Let me give my score. I have my score typed out already. That's how I know. I'm going to give it a 61. A 61. I guess the leaders in this fucking movie out of 100. CineScore for this is my score. It's a 61. Spoilers?
Yep.
Yep.
Spoilers.
Yeah, so the leader. For anybody that doesn't remember him, he is the guy from the Hulk. That the Hulk blood is dripping into the cut on his head and making his brain go bubbly. Big time Hulk villain. You know, because like back in the day with comic books, they weren't really that original with their villains, you know? Like kind of like how Spider-Man's villains are all animal themed. And then it's all animal themed, or the guy that hunts animals. If you want a Craven reference. You know, all of Captain America's villains were just evil super soldiers from other countries. Like, it's that shit. And, you know, so all the Hulk's villains were Hulkish, you know, and the leader was, what if it was the Hulk, but his brain was strong? You know, so that's who the leader is, essentially. And, yeah, they milk that for all it's fucking worth in this movie. Oh, man. They just... they're just sitting around going, man, this Samuel Stearns guy, oh my God, he's genius. And then that motherfucker talks and all he says is the word probabilities, every other word. He's like, man, the probability of me saying probabilities is a high probability, but compared to a low probability of you not hearing the word probability, like, motherfucker, what? Like, I know, Jazz, I know you hate this. I'm going to jump to the very end of this movie. I'm going to jump to the end credits. I'm going to, like, after the end credits, I'm going to jump to the fucking after credit scene. And he's talking to Sam Wilson and he goes, you may have stopped me, but do you know what's coming? I've seen the probabilities of it. No, you haven't. No, you fucking haven't. That's not probabilities. You're not sitting there doing statistics and going, oh yeah, multiversal fucking enemies from other dimensions are coming. That's not how probabilities work. Especially
beautiful mind, Sterling. You don't understand his math. You don't understand how his maths.
But Jastin, that's just not how probabilities work. You have to know something's a thing for probabilities to work. Otherwise, you can't factor it in. So if you know,
so smart when he said it, though. Sterling.
If you know the multiverse is a definitive thing, and you know that they can come here, then you're not looking at probabilities. Then you're just going, hey, it's already a thing that's happening. That's not probabilities either. That's like me sitting here right now going, hey guys, there's a high probability the Red Hulk's in Captain America 4. You wouldn't look at me and go, man, that's intelligence right there. He did all those probabilities in his head. It's fucking stupid. Especially whenever he's just like, oh, I didn't calculate that Captain America would get involved.
Then you didn't see the probabilities.
But he could predict with probabilities that there's going to be a fucking Battle World Secret Wars? What?
It's different math, Sterling. All these things are different maths. The math to predict Captain America is not the same as the math to predict the probabilities of the multiversal threats that are coming. I mean, what's so hard about that to understand?
Probably because the math that Captain America would, like, you know, do some Captain America shit seems way easier to figure out.
Yep.
And that's how probabilities work, because that's a possibility. You're like, man, if I attack the president while he's next to Captain America, I wonder if he's going to get involved. No way to calculate those probabilities. Interdimensional threats? To see it. Probable. But a superhero next to the president? That's just guesswork. 50-50, who knows?
That's a really good point, actually.
Just how can I take anything that guy says seriously when he's like, I didn't foresee you interfering in the possibilities. I was like, what the fuck is this?
Dude is gatekeeping possibilities for anybody else.
I know. He's just like, man, the probabilities are mine and mine alone. Now, what's the probability I poison a pill? Like, also, you're running for president, right? And you have a mad scientist that hates you making your pills. You couldn't give them to nobody else to figure out what's in them? You can do some of that CSI shit, find out what's in the pills, and just make them yourself? Come on, man. Yeah, you got the whole government working for you. And you can't have somebody else make your pills?
You've got a guy that knows a guy. It's fine.
Yet some SEAL team member can get a pill and go, let me give it to my pill guy. And they're like, oh no, it's gamma pills. That guy can figure it out, but the president can't send it to his bud? Come on, man. You know a pharmaceutical company gave that man money on the campaign trail? Can't give him to Steve over at Pfizer? This movie. It's silly. It's a silly movie. I will say that was pretty cool, though, in that opening sequence when he flies down and hits the ground and they're all staring at him and he goes, wait for it. And then it's all sonic boom and it takes them all. That was pretty cool. I like that. But then why, when he's right after that, when he was fighting, like, all right, so then like right after that, he takes out those other ones with the drones, you know? He takes them out. And then he goes up against the big guy and he's just like, I'm not going to use nothing. Why? Why aren't you just droning him in the back of the head? Why aren't you just using your vibranium wings and just slapping him across the room? Why are you doing all this shit, Anthony Mackie? Why aren't you just going wing, fight over, and then you capture Sidewinder right then? Why are you trying to, why are you doing that? We got to fight honorably with no, why? That's not a thing in real life, people. You were a soldier. You know this. You just fought all these other people with your weapons. Why not that guy? I don't get it. I don't get the logic behind that shit.
It's that warrior's code, man. You just don't understand. Cap did it in Winter Soldier. When he fought GSP, he did it.
Yeah, when he fought Batroc the Leaper.
Mm-hmm. They just got that. There's an honor code about it, man. That fighter's code.
I'm sorry, it's stupid.
Yes,
Fuck
in
all
some
that.
cases it is.
Man, Steve Rogers should have just thrown his shield at that man's head and just walked the fuck on. Just like in this movie, he should have just wing slapped him across
Captain
the room.
America, man. You don't want to get after Captain America wouldn't even fight me fair. Who wants that?
What is more American than that, Jastin?
What did Anthony Mackie say in the interview? Not America.
Yeah, I said American. Not Ameriwooden. I'm just saying American slapped the motherfucker with the wing. Also, what the fuck is this shit with like, oh, adamantium, the miracle element. We can make medicine with it. What is this? What in the MCU retcon are they doing with adamantium?
Also, would it be like, maybe I'm wrong, but would it be common for the president himself to be giving these like presentations like this to everybody else?
To world leaders, sure.
Okay.
But also not. Like, he wouldn't be good going up there and giving a scientific PowerPoint.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
Like he'd go, "Hey, Bob, go give the PowerPoint. I got him here. You do your job." You know, he would not be doing that.
He's a real hands-on president.
Also, why was he in a bulletproof projection bubble in that scene that you're specifically talking about? He's in this like glass bulletproof. Why are your computer monitors essentially your holographic computer monitors? Why are they bulletproof? That is so weird. And why couldn't the leader, if the leader can just text anybody and take over their brain with some flashes, why isn't he just doing that with everybody? Why isn't he just putting that on the computer screen? Why isn't he just hacking the computer screen and just taking over that whole room? Why is he just doing it to random people? Just do it to everyone. That would be so much easier. I don't know. Do it on the.
And they really explained it well, like, because whenever they were in that lab, he had files and pictures and labs and stuff on all of these people that he was mind controlling. So I don't know if he needed something from them or needed some sort of, or if he had samples from them or what. I don't really know but there was all that paperwork on certain people who he was controlling.
Oh, yeah. He had like brain imaging scans or something of everybody and all that shit. But
yeah. So I don't know if it was like something specific, like he was using something specific from those people, and that's why he could only control just them, or was this something that he had gathered, but they didn't, either way, they didn't explain it. It's kind of a big hole. Like, you knew he was researching them and you knew he was controlling them, but they never put all that together and said, okay, this is why it's these people,
Yeah, but if you're able to get just specific people's stuff so you can do that, but also due to the movie, everybody he does that with is just the exact right person in these specific instances. Like, how did he know what two pilots were going to be actually flying?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You would have, you've got a whole aircraft carrier of pilots, but he knew the two.
Probabilities, brother. He already told you he knew all that shit. You're still questioning, man. You just don't believe the probabilities. He already calculated all that shit.
I don't, because the motherfucker's just saying so specific. He's just making shit up.
He literally calculated all of this.
But yet, Cap won wild card. Just random motherfucker, wild card. Oh no. Like, come on. Like, but I mean, and that's what I was talking about too. Like when you bring some of that stuff up, it's like, I think that works better in a Hulk movie. Like I said, he's the Hulk with the strong brain versus the Hulk with the muscles. That's why it's the dichotomy. While Banner is smarter, the Hulk's not. And so it's muscles versus brain. Brain versus brawn is what I should have said, but I remembered that saying after I said it. But that's why that works. It just feels like kind of a waste to have him fight regular guy with all his brain power. And like, so like in the whole regular guy thing, I thought we solved that in Falcon and the Winter Soldier of him being regular guy, but Cap. Why did that become another little mini thread in this movie of him going, but maybe I shouldn't be Cap because I'm not a super soldier like you, Bucky. We had a whole TV series based on that. Why is that coming up again? Is that just going to be a reoccurring theme with Sam in every fucking thing he's in from now on? But what if I had the super soldier? I don't know, bro. What if Steve Rogers had wings? There's all kinds of stuff we could throw out there. It's two different things. And that's the thing is like, in the comics, that's not every fucking issue that Sam Wilson's like, but what if I'm not Cap? What if, like, I get that it was a part of the story arc, but that's what makes it also so satisfying is when he starts believing in himself and being the Cap he is. Like, you don't worry about being Steve Rogers. Be the best Cap that Sam can be. That's the inspiring part of Sam Wilson being Captain America, is not being strong, but still being Cap. I don't need this every fucking movie with him. Just because he goes up against somebody big and strong. Or against Giancarlo Esposito again with the guy with the gun. Now, I will say this. The best scene with Sidewinder is whenever he attacks Sam when he's not all Captain America'd out. Like when he has no weapons, he doesn't have a suit, doesn't have the shield. And he's just like, oh, I'm getting you when you're just regular motherfucker. That's when I'm going to attack you. Probably the smartest thing any villain in this movie did was that. Not Brains McGee over there. That motherfucker's just rambling on about probabilities instead of actually doing a fucking plan that works. Sidewinder was at least tried. He lost, but he tried. I don't know. I'm really torn with the scene when the scene outside of Celestial Island when they're all flying and he's all destroying the planes and shit. I'm really torn about that scene. Because while some of the stuff they did there was cool, they also did that weird thing that movies used to do that I thought we could stop doing, but apparently they had to do in this movie, where everybody has to keep saying what's happening. Like Cap destroys one of the planes and saves the Japanese fleet, and somebody has to go, oh, Captain America just saved the Japanese fleet. Yeah, I know. We just saw it. Why are they doing this shit like it's the 1990s X-Men cartoon? Where they're like, Cyclops, use your optic blast. Optic blast. Storm, use your tornado power. Tornado power. What the fuck is this?
That's also just like in any like procedural crime show when they're explaining to the other person, like, oh, this is what this means if you see the blood splatter this way, when it's like you're talking to somebody else who would already know this information. Like, you don't need to do this.
Like it's like one of those shows where they're just in there and they're like, all right, when I put the fingerprint powder on the fingerprint, I can then use some tape and pick it up and we can analyze it. Yeah, the cop knows that. At least I hope so. I hope this guy didn't make detective before he passed the academy.
They probably have PTSD. PTSD is when we understand. We get it. We know. Like, you don't have to tell us.
I know Jastin remembers this, and Heather, you might. I just don't know if this was the type of movie you watched a lot when you were younger. But Jastin, do you remember that long run in movies in the late 90s and early 2000s where every movie that had an EMP had to tell you what an electromagnetic blast was? Or electromagnetic pulse was?
Electromagnetic pulse, EMP. Yep.
They're like, guys, we're going to use the EMP. What's that? The electromagnetic pulse. When this goes off, it'll disable all electronic devices in the blast range. Oh, you mean like the robots? Yeah, like the robots. You remember that? Where every movie, and there was like 20 of them during that time frame, and they each gave you a fucking Webster's dictionary definition of what an EMP was. Just in case you hadn't seen the other 19 movies that told you what the fucking EMP was.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just doing that shit with like, Captain America destroyed the missile. Captain America just destroyed that missile. Fuck. Like, are you saying your movie is that boring that you're just assuming I'm looking at my phone during the action sequence? You got to tell me what the fuck just happened? That ain't some Netflix bullshit. I don't know what else is. And then the Red Hulk. I'm not going to lie. I get what you're saying, Jastin, with that was being a fairly good fight. But also to me, it was very lackluster. And I think it's because I thought, just based on trailers and commercials and posters and advertisements on websites and photos, that the Red Hulk was at least in 87% of this movie. I didn't realize that instead they were just showing me 87 minutes of the last 10 minutes of this movie. So by the time it got to it, by the time they're like, oh yeah, look at this red ass Hulk, I wasn't excited by any of it. My thought process at that point is just like, about damn time. And then I look at my watch and go, well, fuck, the movie ends in 8 minutes. Okay. It just kind of deflated me a little bit once it gets to that point.
I mean, if that's how I felt, I can't imagine people who knew more about this going in beforehand probably were even more let down by it. Cause that was one of my big issues is, again, just anything that was going on with the president. I'm not curious about it because I know what it is. I know you want me to be invested and what's going on with him? Why does he keep acting like this? Does he have superpowers? What's the deal? And I don't have any of those questions, and there's no tension buildup there because I already knew what was coming. And I was just like, yeah, that's why he's acting like that. I already know this. And it's such a bummer that it really was so advertised the way it was.
So when the Red Hulk debuted in the comics, you don't know who the Red Hulk is for a few issues. They keep that a secret. Now, a lot of people theorized it was Thunderbolt Ross, but in the actual comics, they don't tell you who it is for quite a few issues. At least, I think 5, which in comic world, that means 4 or 5 months of guessing and speculating who this character is. But also within the Red Hulk's debut, in one of the first couple of issues, before you find out who it is, he's in a fight with the Incredible Hulk and Thor. He puts essentially Hulk in a hammerlock and breaks the Hulk's arm because of how strong he is. Because that is the type of thing the Red Hulk is. He is a legitimate threat to the Hulk. He can fight Thor. And that's why it's a little deflating to me once you realize in this movie, when it gets to him, the Red Hulk's going to get beat by Captain America, regular ass person Captain America, in 8 to 10 minutes. The man that killed Rick Jones as the A-bomb, broke the Hulk's arm, went toe-to-toe with Hulk and Thor, is going to last 8 to 10 minutes against Sam Wilson's Captain America. That's real weird to me. It feels off. And while I have no problems with the fight itself, I have no problems with the conclusion of the fight. I think within the realm of what they're doing with the MCU, him using the vibranium and the kinetic energy explosion from vibranium is a smart way to beat the Hulk in that instance. Especially stabbing it into him. Stab it into him in an explosion. That'll beat a Hulk, at least temporarily. Okay, that's fine. But also, the Red Hulk punching him, even with the shield and a vibranium suit, I don't know, might have liquefied the man. Because that's also the other side of the Red Hulk's powers. As the Hulk gets angrier, he gets stronger. The Red Hulk does not do that. As the Red Hulk gets madder, he gets hotter. And so, that is the big weakness of the Red Hulk, is he can actually burn out and expend just so much radiation that he burns out and turns back into Thunderbolt Ross. Not intentionally. But he gets so hot in issues of the comics that he melts sand into glass because he is so hot. Being around him hurts you because he is just radiating heat. And they show instances of that in this. As he's transforming, his clothes don't completely rip. They also start burning away, which is indicative of the Red Hulk. So they're showing and implying that is a trait of this Red Hulk, is that his body is producing heat and is burning the fabric away from his body. I don't know how the Falcon would even just be able to be around him in that instance. And also, he is slightly stronger than a regular Hulk. He's not, I can't say he's stronger than the Hulk, because like I said, as the Hulk gets better, he gets stronger. The Hulk's power levels are technically all over the place. There's a version of the Hulk, the one below all Hulk, is a universe destroyer, essentially. But I don't know. I kind of think if he would have punched him, he would have just disappeared. He would have Thanos snapped. Sam Wilson would have just disappeared. And so that's why I felt a little weird about that fight. The fact that he kind of took some hits. I don't know if there was a straight up punch he took, but he at least took, him being grabbed and thrown and shit like that, or, knocked around, even with vibranium in the MCU. That's unheard of levels of shit that you would be taking. But I don't know. That's just me. But I did enjoy Harrison Ford with the mustache. That was pretty cool. For that one little flashback scene. That was nice.
Yeah.
But also, don't you kind of wish, though, that we had gotten a William Hurt version of this? As good as Harrison Ford was, I kind of wish we had gotten to see Thunderbolt Ross from The Incredible Hulk be this. So it's almost kind of like how they should have made the Hulk sequel, I don't know, 14 years ago, and not waited till now. Crazy. Heather, what about you?
No, I can get on board with that. One of my biggest issues with the movie really was just having no sort of anticipation of, who is the big bad, or, what's going on with Thunderbolt Ross. Why is he acting the way he's acting with certain things? And so that definitely was a big one for me. But also, my question at the end of this too, because, at the end we see Thunderbolt is locked up and locked away or whatever. Who's president now? I'm a little bit upset or confused that they didn't address who is now going to be the president, because I feel like that would have been an important piece of information going into future movies or future storylines. And I'm just curious why they didn't mention, unless it's one of those we wanted to leave it open-ended so that if we want to change it with a bunch of rewrites later, we can. But I just kind of wish they would have tied it up with telling us who the new president is and made that maybe like a fun reveal of something you don't expect. Because again, like we also don't see who his vice president is at any point, right? It was just him and his security and his.
They don't even say a name. For a movie with a president whose life is in danger for most of the movie, they don't even mention that a vice president exists.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought that was interesting.
I'm really just surprised that there wasn't even a line like, oh man, we need to let the vice president know about this. Like, I get why they don't want to say the name, because if they need to have somebody like, in 3 movies down the line, they need the American president to be this person because, so they want to be very non-committal with a name. The fact that they just didn't even mention that a vice president is a constitutionally guaranteed position in our government, with how much this president was in danger.
Yeah, it could have been like, get the vice president on the line.
Yes,
something like that.
Exactly. Just like say, hey, we got to let the vice president know too. Something like, yeah, we'll let the vice president know this too. Or, just a line. Mention that it exists. Because right now in the MCU, our government is run by nobody.
Yeah, it's a problem. And I also think that the whole end credits scene too was lacking, because for me, I don't really feel like there was a big, oh man, moment of, wow, this is what we have to look forward to in one of the future movies. Because for me, I felt like, oh, this is stuff that I think we already knew, right? About there's other worlds or other people or whatever he said about it.
Well, what I like to think about it is how like in other MCU movies, they want to give you something to look forward to in another movie. I kind of like, over this podcast, I've started to appreciate it because you're just like, hey guys, other movies are going to happen. We're going to have some other stuff. What? No idea. But there will be more movies. And as Jastin would say, the probability of another MCU movie is high. I've seen it. I've seen the probabilities of other MCUs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Pretty much. But yeah, that was just like, I just don't feel like the wrap up on this one was super tight, but that's neither here nor there with it. Another thing I wanted to mention too is Isaiah in this movie, original Captain America. Mantis himself, I just really liked his performance in this. I liked him in the show as well, but I just really like what they did with his character, and I like how he portrayed this guy that was like essentially at the end of his rope and felt like he didn't really have anything left, and the pain and the struggle you see of what it was for him to go back to prison and things like that. Like everything he did with his performance in this, I thought was really good. And I like that he was such a big and integral part of this particular film. And I think that matches up with especially the relationship that Sam builds with him from the series. So I think that was carried over in a really good way. Not a whole lot else was, but that part was. So I really did appreciate that. But also the Bucky cameo. It was short and sweet. I liked it. I think it was good. It was nice to see him because so much of what I did love about the series was the dynamic between Sam and Bucky. They just really have a great chemistry together, and you miss it when you don't see it. But I do like that, he had his brief thing that he did with Sam, his brief conversation that he had. But most of the fun dynamic in this movie was Sam and Joaquin. And I think that was a good choice because we're not going to see Bucky and Sam in all the things. So let's set up this new dynamic that's similar, but different people so that we know we're going to be able to still have this thing that you loved about the series in these other two characters, hopefully. So yeah, I did appreciate, I guess, how they did that. But also, I do feel like it would have been weird to not have Bucky in this movie at any point, given their relationship from the series, especially. So yeah, that was a really nice moment in the show. And then the other, or the only other really thing I wanted to discuss was our girl Ruth in this. Well, first of all, I understand that she was the former, what you were alluding to, Jastin. What is the name of the group that she was?
She was from the Red Room.
The Red Room, yeah. You know, like, I get that they just wanted to sort of introduce her and let you know that she was maybe going to have something important to do in this movie or in a future movie. I don't know. But the way that they did her character in this almost felt like it was unnecessary. Like, they did show some moments of seeing her skill and her ability that she has. But, I mean, specifically who she plays in the film really just could have been anybody. It didn't necessarily need to be her specifically. And I don't think much would have changed about the movie. Like, I get that she's probably a really cool character and might have a lot to do in future films, maybe, but I just don't like the way they introduced her, or just sort of what her role was in this. I don't think was utilized the best way. It didn't need to be this particular person. And, you know, again, not a bad character. I just don't really think that she was utilized in the best way in this film. So that's really my biggest issue with her. And yeah, like, I didn't really know much about her character before seeing this movie. So maybe I'm reading that wrong, but they kind of acted as if they were trying to introduce her here because she's going to be super important later. But I just don't really think it didn't gel. It didn't jive as well. But yeah, I don't know. They could have done her better, or they could have just made that character someone else altogether. And she was supposed to be like head of the security for the president, right? Is that what her job was? I think. Like, I just didn't see her doing much of that either. She was mostly just like, okay, cool. I'm here. I'm around. Let me help you do the stuff you're doing, Captain America. It was just a really weird setup for her altogether. But yeah. And I kind of mentioned a little bit of this in my non-spoilers, but really just the best thing about this is, like, when Sam, or I guess Anthony Mackie, is being really vulnerable about, you know, how many people had to, like, really struggle for him to get where he was, and how he has to sort of be perfect and always be on, because he's so criticized, and he's going to be so highly criticized if he's not perfect and on point every time, because he has to uphold the pressure that he has of upholding this legacy, because it's double work because of who he is and things like that. So I really liked that moment that he had at the end with Joaquin, sort of explaining all of that. That was a great moment. I wish that there was a little bit more of moments like that in the film, but when we get them, they're really, really good. So yeah, that's honestly the best thing about the film. The worst thing is just, like, the lack of tension or the lack of intrigue that I had surrounding the other characters that they introduce.
Oh, I'll be getting into Ruth later. But Jastin, what you got?
Cool. So, I just think that when the movie first started, I think that I was a little more enthusiastic when it was setting everything up, because, like you were saying, Heather, it was nice to see Isaiah right away, and seeing that he had developed even more of a friendship with Sam, and especially with him still being a super soldier. So the idea of him training with Sam, or helping Sam, and his military experience, that made sense. And then whenever Torres meets him, and he's going to start training him a little bit and everything. All of that was really cool. So I really like that scene. I like the scene when they were in the limo on the way to the White House and they're just, being friends, and you got this old vet and then the Captain America and then the younger guy. So I like that dynamic with the three of them. All of that was good, and it was good to see Isaiah back in this because he was one of those people who had some very impactful scenes in The Winter Soldier. And there was something, I think it did make it whenever the whole mind control thing happened and that happened and he did that. I like the execution of that for the most part, the way that went down, the shooting but not shooting of the president. And then all of them and the mystery of it and how there were just these things that Sam saw right away that were weird, but he couldn't answer the questions. I like the setup of everything, the setup of that, the mystery of that, him trying to answer these questions, but not really having the answers and being like, okay, Isaiah's framed. I got to help him. I got to get him out of this situation. I thought that setting up all of those pieces initially was pretty good. Even though everybody and their mom knew that Ross was going to be the Red Hulk. So unfortunately, that wasn't a surprise. But I did like the journey to become the Red Hulk. I liked all the things that he was trying to balance as the president. This whole thing about getting this, they find this celestial thing, and one of the materials in that is adamantium. Okay, well, I guess there could have been a million ways to get adamantium. They chose this way. Okay, I don't expect everything in the MCU to follow the comic books exactly, but we have adamantium, so cool. Now, there's hella characters and hella things that have to do with adamantium, so maybe we can do some more mutant shit. We can do some more X-Men shit. It's not the worst thing in the world. And then him trying to have this treaty so that all these countries and people can come together and we can utilize this resource and we can do something really good with it. And I liked him comparing it to Wakanda and vibranium and saying, you got this isolationist country over here and they're trying to keep it to themselves and preserve it and stuff like that. But hey, we got all these other threats. We got this, we've got Namor and his people in the sea, and we've got all this stuff that's happening. We need to harness some of this stuff so we can use it. So his reasoning seemed okay. Like it didn't seem like anything he was saying was dumb or, that seemed like a logical course for this character to take. And then when you find out more about his condition and the fact that he was dying and he had a heart issue, so he's kind of having this scientist who he sort of had blackmailed and sort of put in this corner, making this stuff for him, helped him become president, doing all these probabilities, helping him to calculate his way into the presidency, but at the same time...
Man, motherfucker, don't throw probabilities in there like it's just a thing. Don't you do that. Don't you justify that fucking word in this movie.
They said it.
Don't you do it.
Well, I mean, I get that you don't like the buzzword probability, but all they really have to do is just explain this as, this guy is so smart that he can calculate things, and it's almost like he's making predictions, but they're more like calculations because his brain, he's so smart that he can just see all of the different possibilities and scenarios. And therefore he's smart enough to almost calculate it like math, like where we see numbers, he can see maybe outcomes or scenarios. And he's so good at weighing what could and could not happen. maybe it's almost like he's predicting. It's like he's predicting the future, but really he's calculating it. I really think that's what this was. Maybe they didn't use the right word, but essentially that's what he was doing. That's what the leader was doing. He's so good at reading and seeing all of the different possibilities that can happen, but he's actually calculating what the most likely thing would be. Essentially,
Yeah, it's
is what
just
the
like,
character's doing.
It's more or less, in a lot of ways, it's chess. If I
Yeah.
move here, they move here. If I move here, then they do this. It's doing
Yeah.
It's being 3 steps ahead in chess. It's
And that's how it should have been explained.
exactly. It's just the fact that they kept making it sound like, oh, he's just doing these calculations and he just knows the answer due to this. Like they should have, like I said, if they had equated it to chess, like they do in every other fucking I'm an evil genius or whatever movie, why didn't they just do that? It's just the fact that they kept saying the word probabilities, and that annoyed me.
Yeah. And it's just like what they did in Thor with the whole, is it magic or is it science or all of that kind of stuff. I think you maybe could have done a similar thing here. Is he predicting the future or is he calculating it? You could have done some fun stuff with him where he's just so smart that he's anticipating and predicting all of these things. But like I said, I think I said it best. They're not even really predictions to him, though. They're calculations because he's just that damn smart. But essentially, that's what he was doing. That's how he was able to have Ross make the right moves to become president. And then ultimately, he's given him this stuff to help to keep him alive and preserve his heart. So I liked all the morally gray, back and forth, light and dark things that Thaddeus Ross was doing. And Harrison Ford trying to balance it all, trying to keep things hidden, but it all unraveling, and ultimately him being unable to control it and then having to face it and not facing it the right way and becoming the Red Hulk is pretty good shit. That's not a bad story. That's not a bad path for this character. I just think that it would have been more effective if it was a surprise, because then it would have been like building to this whole thing. And maybe if we didn't know already in every preview ever that he was going to be the Red Hulk, it just would have, I think it would have just felt a little more surprising in the movie. But I get that they wanted people to know that because they thought that would get more people in the door. So I don't know. I see both sides of it.
Question.
Maybe go ahead.
Is there ever a storyline with the leader where he comes in contact with Doctor Strange? Because I feel like that would be interesting conversation or something that they would have together.
In the universe of all comics that have ever existed, I'm just going to say the probability is very high.
Yeah, I mean, because it's so similar what they're doing that it feels like that would be a good storyline to see play out in some way.
But that's the thing, is that's MCU Doctor Strange. The Eye of Agamotto is not the Time Stone in the MCU. Or I'm sorry, in the comics. So
okay,
it is a different thing in the comics in that regard. But I do get what you're saying, though, that like, would the leader be able to calculate a probability that Doctor Strange, by going through all the potential timelines, wouldn't see, or vice versa?
Yeah,
like
I was thinking that same thing.
You get into more of I think a better matchup, if you will, in that regard, of like having to out calculate what somebody is seeing as what's considered fact. But the thing is like, you're using the time stone to do this and that and all this other stuff. But are you also seeing things if the timeline changes? That should change the outcome of all your stuff, because you're only basing it from that point moving forward. You're not also going back in time to see if something there changed that causes this to change moving forward and all this other stuff, because time travel is very much a thing in the MCU, so there's all of those types of things. And yeah, so I do get what you're saying, Heather. It's just the unfortunate difference of what Doctor Strange is in the MCU versus what he is in the comics.
Okay. Sorry, Jastin, go ahead.
No, but I get what you're saying there. Even just a scene with them where one of them is using a stone or the eye to see all of this stuff, and then another person is able to just calculate it would be interesting. But it would almost be a callback to that whole science versus magic type thing, because one of them is just using math and likelihoods and all of these different calculations, and the other one is seeing it through magic. So I get what you're saying. That would be kind of an interesting meeting, but like with and then so like at first when it was kind of Winter Soldiery and there's this mystery and Sam is trying to figure it out and we're putting together pieces, but he doesn't quite know who's doing what and trying to figure out, okay, why are these people doing this? How are these people being controlled? All of that was, I thought, the more intriguing and better parts of the movie. I think the problem though with the leader is, and I get that you're paying off another movie. This was a character that you had already set up. These are characters already from another story. But when you get there and you find out that it's him, my initial reaction was, who is this again? And I just wonder how many people have the same reaction as that. It took me a minute to realize, oh, that's right. He was that scientist in Incredible Hulk that this happened to. But when they first reveal it, it's revealed as if you're supposed to be like, oh man, him. Oh, it's him. But it really wasn't like that, because that was a movie from 20 years ago.
Well, and the best thing about it is that, like you said, Jastin, you're like, all right, I'm going to do my homework. Let me watch that Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Oh, wrong one. It's like you did your algebra homework instead of writing your English paper.
It was like that. And I almost wish I would have known that it was going to be that way. Like, do they ever at these press conferences or on a site or on Disney Plus or something tell you, why don't you watch these movies again? Or why don't you watch these things again before the movie comes out?
And
it would have been nice to have at least gotten a heads up. I mean, you got 20 something odd movies and 20 years of film. Help us keep up with this story.
And I didn't even see that Hulk, if I'm being honest. So I was like, oh, who's that? Because I didn't even watch that one. So yeah.
All right, guys, I'll try my best in the future to do this, because I knew Tim Blake Nelson was in this movie. And I knew Tim Blake Nelson was the leader because of the Incredible Hulk. Like that's the unfortunate thing about this. As much as Marvel wants to keep their secrets and wants to do that, and they want to surprise the audiences and all this other stuff, they also really, really fucking rely on you to know these, like, watch the news and like find out who's got cast as this and who's that. And like, you know what I mean? Like, I knew Tim Blake Nelson was in this movie because he got cast back in like 2022 is when he got cast in this movie. And I remember, oh yeah, that was the leader from the Incredible Hulk, so I knew the leader was at least in this movie, but also, like, it's that fundamental flaw of things though, that like, but we're talking about in Companion, I really knew what the fuck was going on going into that movie. Whereas like you knew less because you had seen less trailers. And Heather knew a little bit more than you, but still less than me because of trailers. Like she had watched 2 trailers. You might have only watched 1. I knew this, that, promotional materials, all that shit. You know, and that really changes your movie going experience in some ways. But when you're trying to, like what we've talked about before, to openly trick audiences, which Marvel's been known to do in trailers and stuff like that, but also you're casting a guy from this movie. If you're not looking into the news on the MCU on a, you know, monthly basis and finding out who's been cast and all this other stuff, and if they've been in an MCU movie before, or if they haven't, are they replacing somebody from an old movie? It kind of puts you in these scenarios of, oh, I want to get excited. I want to watch these movies to catch up. Well, you would have watched all the Cap movies. You would have watched Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And maybe if you just truly, truly sat down and were thinking about it, you would have gone, well, Thunderbolt Ross is in this movie, so maybe I also watched the Hulk. But that's not your first instinct when it comes to watching Captain America 4. Starring the Falcon from Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Yeah. I was just expecting with all the things they set up, I just thought I would see more of those things play out in this movie. And some of that stuff I avoid on purpose because I want to be surprised. I don't want to know every person that's in a movie going in. I don't want to, you know, some of that stuff, I do that on purpose because I feel like sometimes going in blind with it, blind in the sense of the casting and some of the news and rumor mills and all of that stuff. I like to avoid a lot of that stuff because I feel like I want to be surprised by some of the things that happen. But I wish that I could have at least have known, but I hope that, especially if you're going to be going back 20 years and tying up loose ends and stuff like that, it would just be nice to know, hey, before you watch this movie, brush up on these things, because things from this, I don't want to know exactly who's in it or exactly the things, but it would be nice to know, hey, you need to have watched these stories are going to come into play with
worst
this
case,
movie.
Worst case, do like just a quick flashback to a scene from that where he's like, hey, or something like, hello, I'm expecting you. And then you just see like a flashback of that, him from that movie or something, you know?
I'm real surprised though that they didn't do that when they're like,
Yeah.
Samuel Stearns, and then just goes black and white. And it's the scene where he's lying down and the blood's dripping and the cut. He's like, yeah, my bubbly brain. Why didn't they do that scene?
Yeah. It might have helped just a little bit, but so that reveal, it was like, oh, okay, it's him. But, you know, and then also tying back to the Winter Soldier, it was a little too much like all of that, where, you know, they're trying to figure out who's pulling all these strings and stuff. And then what does Steve and Natasha discover? That it's this scientist whose consciousness is in this computer. And he reveals that he has calculated all of these things and all this stuff with Hydra, and we have infiltrated the government, and this is all the things that we're going to do because we're Hydra, and we've been planning this all along, and this is the culmination of this big plan. Well, we get here, and it's a scientist that's been hiding somewhere, and he has done all of these, and he has calculated all these things, and he's got this big plan, and it's all going to culminate with Thaddeus Ross. It was too similar to that. It's too similar, and then the character was not impactful enough. So none of it packed the punch, if you will, that it needed to, in my opinion.
But even then, Zola makes way more sense because it's Captain America 2 and Captain America 1. Like
Yeah,
Zola's
exactly.
in Captain America 1. And it's like, oh yeah, by the way, you remember Zola, you know, from just the last movie.
Exactly.
This is going,
and
hey
it
guys.
was the last movie, and it was Hydra. You know, it still had way more like relative parts.
How many MCU movies are we at this point? Like 36, 37? Something like that.
Yeah.
And they're
Yeah.
like, hey guys, do you remember something from the second MCU movie? The second one. The second.
Yeah.
Remember that guy we have not talked about whatsoever for 34 straight movies? Super important right now. Just the most important.
Yeah. So it just, man, so that just didn't hit like I wanted it to. And even though I appreciate trying to tie up loose ends, trying to do some stuff with these characters and these things like the Celestial and these things that you set up, it just it just didn't hit as much because it felt like all of this belonged, all of these realizations and things should have been with another character. It felt like Bruce Banner should have been making these discoveries and finding this out, not Captain America, Sam Wilson. So I just don't think that hit like it needed to. I wish that one of the things I loved about Captain America and the Winter Soldier was how they got into like some of the social and racial things that were going on with that. And they really did a good job of highlighting that as to reasons why or why not he was going to go ahead and take the shield and become Captain America. I wish that some of that continued a little more in this. I thought that maybe we were going to see now that he is Captain America, some of the maybe biases towards how certain people look at him and how other people in society look at him. Maybe there's a part of the public that doesn't really approve of him, but then there's another part that does. Or, I wish that they had also kind of went into the difficulty now that you are in office, now that you have the mantle, there's still going to be those racial and social difficulties. So I wanted to see, at least, I think in this movie, there could have been a sprinkle of that in there because that still is very much Sam's story. But it was kind of like, well, we're done with all of that because he's Captain America now. And I don't necessarily think so. It wasn't like it all went away when Obama became president or any kind of time a Black person does anything like this, where it's like this historic position and somebody of a different race comes in. They're still facing that stuff even when they get the position. So
motherfuckers couldn't even handle Beyonce winning a fucking Grammy for country music. Or I don't know, writing a fucking country music album. Do you want to know how I know that was a country music album? I don't like it. And I like Beyonce. And it's not that I'm thinking it's a bad album. I'm saying it's so country, I don't want to fucking listen to it. That's what I'm saying. And people throwing a fit. And you're taking Captain America, the identity, the superhero identity of America, and it is a Black man. And you're telling me everyone's just on board now? Everyone?
Yeah. So I just like, I wish that instead of this being like a movie about him finishing Hulk's story, I really wish that maybe this almost just could have been this down to earth story. And, our Sidewinder, I think there's another version of this movie where maybe Sidewinder's the main villain, or somebody within the White House is trying to use this hate to maybe get Captain America out of there or something. And, you've got Sam going up against he's trying to hold this position and trying to do it the right way. But at the same time, there are these people that don't want him to be Captain America. And maybe there's this kind of conspiracy to get him to quit or to get him to make a mistake or something like that. And they don't want him there because, and then maybe it all comes back to some other character we've set up. Like maybe it's the power broker because she's in the government now. She doesn't want him there looking over his shoulder. I don't know. I think maybe there was another completely different movie that would have felt more like a Sam journey and a Captain America movie more than this did with doing all the Hulk parts and having all of this stuff. I almost wish that they had just brought Bruce Banner back and did some story tying all this up with him, and let the Green Hulk fight the Red Hulk or some shit. That might have been a more interesting movie.
What a crazy idea, Jastin. The Hulk fighting a Hulk villain? What?
I know. Right.
Crazy talk.
But anyway, but that was just some thoughts I had. Like, I wanted to see some more of that, like, political, social, racial shit that they set up that they did so well in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And it just sucks and this felt just a little too safe for me. It felt just a little too accepting of him. I still wanted some hurdles with that stuff.
Jastin, it sounds like you want your Captain America movies to be woke.
Uh-oh. I guess so. Maybe that would have just been too woke for him. But while I didn't get that, I did like showcasing, though, that even though he is Captain America, the struggle with the whole thing with the serum, I was okay with it. We understood why he didn't take it, but I liked him having difficulties and having struggles and villains getting away from him and him wondering, maybe if I had had that, it would have made a difference. I get why that would constantly come back and why that would constantly be like a struggle with him and him constantly going, well, was I good enough to, if I were just a little bit better, if I could run a little bit faster, if I could do some of those things, could I have handled this situation a little bit better? So I didn't mind that coming back to kind of help show the hardship of him being Captain America, because I think that that's another part of it too. Rather than just the hardship of, I have to solve this and do this, I do like him having some self-doubts and talking, and like you said, him talking about the pressure of this and trying to like live up to this, but at the same time wondering if I had that little extra help, would that have made a difference in this scenario or in this situation where these people almost beat me and Torres up and they almost got away? And could I have, if I was better, could I have done a better job in this situation? So I didn't necessarily hate that. That feels like a very real thing, like it's kind of like athletes and stuff. And a lot of them, wrestlers, people who do anything where it involves an extreme amount of physicality, some of them talk all the time about how it's a constant question of, should I take something to help me do this? Or should I, if I could lift a little bit longer, if I could go a little bit harder in the gym, what could I do with that? And the struggle with that constantly coming back. So could I see a human being trying to be Captain America and you're trying to fight these villains and you're trying to do all this stuff and all of this responsibility is on you? Could I see some things like that coming back and your confidence sometimes being shot? Sure. He's still a human being. So I don't mind a human being doing human shit. I don't mind that creeping in every now and then. And it wasn't a main arc or anything, but it was but where they chose to put it, I thought was a good place. We were kind of in that, headed into the third act. he had had some successes, but he had also had some failures. Torres got hurt really bad. And of course, him being the leader, he's going to start to wonder what he could have done to not see his friend hurt. All of it made sense. And that's why I really liked Bucky in that scene. And him saying, well, Cap had the serum and he couldn't save everybody either. Just bringing him down to earth and making him understand that Captain America wasn't perfect, man. You know, Captain America didn't save everybody. Captain America didn't always make every right decision, you know, but you've got to do it your own way. You've got to do it, you know, this is your fight. You've got to do it your own way and you've got to stand on that. You can't slip now. You have to be even more confident in yourself in that. And Bucky assuring him was good. And seeing Bucky in the scene, I missed him, man. I wish that he was in more of this movie. And I understand he's going to be in the Thunderbolts. I get it. They can't always be together. A lot of what you said is valid, Heather. We got to focus on him and Torres. But what was weird about what they did with Joaquin is that he gets hurt in the second act. And so he's in a hospital bed during the third act and he's not there. So if he's not going to be there, why couldn't it have been Cap and Bucky against the Red Hulk? Or why couldn't it have been, you know what I mean? Like, okay, the sidekick that's supposed to be here, you hospitalized him. And so it was just Sam. I think it would have been more interesting if it was both of them. Or if you were going to hurt Torres, why didn't he get hurt fighting the Red Hulk? That would have made that so much better to me.
Like, you still have that ending with him and them meeting in the hospital room or whatever. Same ending.
Exactly. You would have got the same ending, but Torres, like, I think he kind of went out a little weak, man. Like the missile getting blown up or whatever. And I get it. He's a rookie. He's still young. He's new. He wasn't really listening in that moment and it cost him. So I get all of that, but why not let the Red Hulk be the one that hurt him like that? Why not he have been, or maybe he gets slightly kind of hurt in that battle with the missiles, but he suits up anyway and comes out there and tries to help Sam while he's fighting the Red Hulk. He could have saved Sam. Maybe it's a moment where the Red Hulk has Sam dead to rights. Falcon shows up, saves him for that second, tries to fight, but gets hurt or whatever. And maybe that's the last little bit of motivation that Sam needs for that final part of the fight that they had. But I don't know. I wouldn't have had Torres go down so early. I think that he should have been a part of the third act. And like what you were saying, Heather, I love that scene at the hospital bed with them where they really got to talk and be real with each other, but we needed more of that. I wanted to know more about Torres and who he was and why he's doing this. And I get that he idolizes Falcon and he wanted to be Falcon. You know, those are things that we knew, but let's learn more about him, make him more compelling and not so much funny, oh, look at him, he's young, he's funny. And I think one time even Sam said, he just don't shut up. Well, cool, but let's make him more compelling like we did with Sam whenever Steve met him. Like they made Sam such a compelling character because they told a really good story. And you saw Sam doing these good things and you saw him like, he had some really wholesome moments in The Winter Soldier. And he didn't have many moments, but they were good enough to where you were like, okay, you understand why Cap likes this guy and vibes with this guy. I think I would have liked to have seen a couple of more scenes like that hospital bed scene with Torres to really put his character in perspective. Now, obviously, he's going to be in more movies and he's going to be back. But the more characters you introduce and do, the harder it's going to be to develop him. So I just would have thought that this would have been the perfect movie to do that for him. And I still don't think we quite took that character to the next level. And I definitely would have had him do something heroic or brave or help help Sam during that Red Hulk fight. Last thing about the Red Hulk fight. As much as I love the fight itself because there were a lot of things I liked about it. I liked how Sam was using the vibranium rings and the kinetic energy and using that to try to fight against the Hulk and everything like that. All of that was good. That's the only way that I could envision Sam even trying to fight the Hulk. So him using that, I think, was spot on. My question about it, though, was I liked everything, the whole fight. And then when he did that kinetic energy, vibranium explosion, and it made this big crater, they were both in the ground, and he gets up and he's like, man, I really hope that knocked him out. And Hulk is just up and still coming. And he's like, damn it. You know what I mean? But then he was able to talk him down and get him to calm down, which is fine. But why wasn't his daughter there to do that? Why wasn't that Liv Tyler's big entrance and scene? Why was she at the jail doing that? That would have been the perfect time for her to come in. It should have been, if I were writing it, I would have had him have like a Steve moment in that moment. You know, they come out of the ground and he's barely got nothing left. He's got half a wing. Maybe even you see the wing kind of deactivate, like that shit's broke. It ain't coming back on. And then he looks up and the Hulk is there. And you know, fucking Sam, he stands up with his fist balled and you know that his wings are gone. He doesn't have it anymore. Hulk broke him. Hulk is walking towards him and you know he doesn't stand a chance. But he's standing there, standing his ground, having a Captain America moment. Nah, man, I'm still gonna fight you, even though I know this is a losing battle. And if Liv showed up, if daughter Ross showed up right at that moment and talked down the Hulk and got Ross to turn back into Harrison Ford, I think that just would have been a better ending for this.
I agree as a movie. The problem is the logic. Why would she have been there, though? Because she hadn't talked to him in decades.
But he had been trying to reach her, though, right?
Yes. But the reason why she shows up at the end is because she sees that he's changed because he took responsibility for the damages caused by being the Red Hulk and by keeping the leader imprisoned. He took responsibility for it and turned himself in and went to jail. And so that's why she was willing to listen to him then, because she saw the change.
Wasn't that shit on the news though? Didn't they say, "Oh man,
but the logic would be is if she's in New York or say she's in LA, it's on the news. But how are you going to get her from LA to Washington D.C. in 20 minutes? You know, like you'd have to go find her, get her there, and all that stuff. That's like logically why that doesn't work. But I get what you're saying, because that also mirrors the end of fucking the Incredible Hulk when she talks Banner down after he beats the Abomination. And if you're mirroring that fucking movie, you know, by having this be the Incredible Hulk 2, why not? Cinematically, it works better because you can just say, like, you could have it be one of those things that, like, Bucky had, or what was the other presidential advisor, the one that was friends with Sam, also Layla, something like that. You could just have it be that she had been trying to track her down and had finally convinced her to come to her father, like talk to her father after that press conference. But you would have to put something in the movie narrative to justify Betty being in DC.
Yeah, and he was sick too. So I think, you know, he was acting all sick and shit and going, oh, ain't nothing wrong with me. But there were people questioning him and knew about that and stuff. And kind of, I think any of those agents, or like you're saying, one of them, or that the black chick that was also like,
Yeah, that's who I'm talking about. She should,
okay,
It is
that's who
Layla.
you're talking.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. One of them could have just easily, it could have easily been something where it's like, hey, you know, daughter Ross, he's sick, he's losing himself, he's talked about you constantly. Can you just try? You know,
Well-
maybe one of them convinces her, can you come to this press conference? I mean, you know.
Exactly, because after,
Yeah.
like, say she talks him down, right? All you have to do is have Layla and Sam having a conversation because they were already friends. You know, he had already said she's his inside man to kind of keep tabs on Ross and, like, you know, let him know if things are going bad with Ross. She's already that role. And so all you got to do is have Sam and her talking outside of Joaquin's hotel room before the scene there, you know, you guys are talking about, and him going, I really appreciate you having talked to Betty and getting her there. And she was like, yeah, I really lucked out that I had convinced her to talk to him after that press conference, you know, because of
That'll
his health
work,
issues
yeah.
and stuff. And we were just lucky that, you know, she was willing to help us in that instant. Just a throwaway bullshit line like that to justify Betty being there. And that's all I'm saying, like, that I would need logically. A reason for Betty to be in DC at that moment. But you have a
Mhm.
throwaway line, done. From a
Yeah.
character that shows that she would have done something for Sam or Ross.
Yeah. Yeah. True. And maybe the opener could have been his attempted assassination. That would have been a great opener for her to start calling her. I don't think that daughter Ross would have been like, hey, did you see on the news that somebody tried to kill, you know, maybe the daughter calls and goes, is he all right at least? Maybe she, even though she doesn't really like him, they're not on good standing. If somebody tried to shoot him, she might call somebody and try to check on him. That could have been an opening. You know, that could have been, or like you're saying, that character could have called her as a result of that and going, hey, you know, he got, you know, this assassination attempt and everything. Like, I know you guys aren't on speaking terms, but you almost lost your dad today. You know, there's 100 ways and 100 things that you could have gotten her there. I get it. It's kind of doing the old movie, and I get what you're saying and the logic of why she showed up story wise when she did, and the fact that he was trying to change and she had saw his changes and everything. So it does make sense in that way. But God, man, I think this fight could have been at least a little bit better if you had Torres in there and it kind of played out like that. And I like the cap moment for Sam to just be there, broke wings, standing there like, I'm still gonna fight the fucking Hulk. Like,
What about this, though? Torres gets hurt. He's on the ground. It's the whole explosion thing. Like, Red Hulk slaps Torres against a car. Explosion thing. Crater. And Sam runs over to Torres to check him. Hulk's getting up. And instead of him standing up to fight him, have him just take the shield and, like, cover them both. Like, he's just like, I have to try to still save Torres. Like, be that version of it.
okay.
And he's
Yeah,
just
that'd be
standing there
good.
resigned to the fact that, like, Hulk about to smash, but maybe I can sacrifice myself to still save Torres. Maybe this will save Torres, though.
Yeah.
If he kills me, maybe Torres is still alive. And that's when Betty shows up. And she's all, Papa Thunderbolt, Papa Thaddeus. And Red Hulk goes, arr, arr.
Daddy Fatty?
I like that.
Or does that sound too sexual?
That sounds a little too sexy, Justin. Get that daddy fatty.
Daddy Fatty. Daddy Fatty.
Dude, think about how great that would have been as a campaign slogan for the Gen Z, though. Vote for Daddy Fatty.
Vote for dude.
They'd be like,
Fatty.
that's my president. Yeah.
Got that young people vote. Because he just shaved the stash. Dude, think about it. He's all Thunderbolt Ross. And they're like, I don't know. But he shaves that stash. He's all, guys, I'm Daddy Fatty. And they're like, oh, damn.
I know. Daddy
Got
Fatty.
my
dog.
vote.
You think about like a young Harrison Ford too. Like,
Yeah, they go, man, he kind of looks like Indiana Jones. He's Daddy Fatty.
Yeah.
Oh, man. But yeah, I think that's all I had. I just wanted to talk about that ending and to say one quick thing about the mid-credit scene. Yeah, I agree with y'all. What was that? It was just him going, oh, there's going to be more shit. We know.
You've got
Show
two
us
more.
something.
You've
Damn
got
it.
2 more movies this year. And you're just going, you getting something?
Yeah. Like,
I
he's
mean-
like, I've seen the probabilities and you're getting something. Like, just the most let down ending or end credits
like,
ever.
I mean, the Thunderbolts is next. Get us excited about that. Show
They're
some
fighting
shit happening.
The
Show
fucking
somebody
century.
talking to somebody with the Thunderbolts or something. A show freaking Winter Soldier going and meeting somebody and it's like, oh shit. Here come the Thunderbolts.
Dude,
or some shit.
how-
Something.
How easy would it have been to instead of having the Falcon go visit him, have the Bucky go visit him, and do the same fucking thing, except he just goes, I've looked at the probabilities. You're gonna need a team to Bucky, and that's the Thunderbolts. Like, just do that.
Already a better.
Just do that.
Yeah. Already.
Yeah.
Just do that.
And that's already, yeah.
And have him go. Like, I've looked at the probabilities, and I hear the thunder. You're gonna need a team, Bucky. Just something stupid, but just have it be that. Like, at least it ties into the next movie. And it's using a character, and I know it's crazy for this movie to do this, but using a character that actually should be in this movie. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Real quick.
But yeah, that's all I had.
I wanted to do a couple things real quick. One, I know how to fix this movie, guys. I really do. You can pretty much start it the same. Pretty much start it the exact same. You have him Hulk out, though, in the middle of the movie. They do a fight. I know it's not exactly what we're talking about to fix this, or fix the fight as we saw, but have him Hulk out in the middle of the movie. But have there also be some sort of explosion, something, a bomb. That's what is the thing that catalyzes him fully turning. You know what I mean? Like an assassination attempt with a bomb or something like that. You can then tie in, Jastin, what you were talking about the doubt of Captain America. Because you can have people be like, Steve Rogers would have stopped that bomb.
Yeah,
Steve
he couldn't
Rogers.
protect the president. He was there and he couldn't protect the president.
And you can have people blame the bomb and they think the bomb is what turned him, right? It wasn't that it was the leader doing the shit. It was the bomb that turned him. And they can blame the Hulk. Or they can blame Cap. They can be like, hey, Cap, you suck. You're not as good as Steve. The president became a Hulk because of you. And you can have him do a rampage and jump away and hide. Like run away, whatever. You know what I mean? Just do a Hulk thing. But the rest of the movie is back to kind of what we talked about in this, which would have been a strength. Him trying to figure out who the fuck it was.
Yeah.
That's when you run into the Serpent Society. Who's the muscle? Or who? The leader. Who is in jail. And Thunderbolt Ross was using him and poisoning him and all this other stuff. Ultimately, the leader's responsible for all of it. But he has to go through the Serpent Society and all this other stuff to figure it out and fight them to figure out who it was. And at the end, it's the leader. And then you can have another Red Hulk battle. But maybe have the leader also, like the leader in the Serpent Society, have to help him. Because the leader's all for making him a Red Hulk. He didn't expect the Red Hulk to come after him, though. You know? And so that way you get a little bit of the leader fighting a Hulk with his mind. You know, in that instance. And you can have Torres get hurt in that. You can, you know, any of that stuff. You can have the leader kidnap Betty, and that's why she's fucking there, and talks him down. All of that shit. And you can kind of tie it in a little bit better. Because you can have Isaiah get framed for the bomb. So you can even have that. You can even, if you want the mind control bullshit, have Isaiah mind controlled into the bomb was him, or you know what I mean? You could still tie some of these aspects together, but I think if you frame it better, you'll end up playing into what are the best strengths of a Captain America movie, which was the Winter Soldier. But you're not completely doing the Winter Soldier again. You're playing into just some of the strengths of it, which is bringing Captain America into a political thriller. A spy thriller movie. You know. And tie in like to those types of things. And you can still have the Hulk, you can still have the leader, you can still have the Serpent Society, you can still have all that bullshit. And also, you're not wasting the Red Hulk in your advertisements. Because you get him early in the movie. You know? And dude, think about it. You can have, instead of having scenes where Harrison Ford is flipping out on an aircraft carrier, you can have it cut to scenes of him like trying to hide somewhere. Because he's freaking out because he was the Red Hulk. He's like, what the fuck is happening to me? And you could just have a scene of him like walking through like Cairo or something. Just scared and paranoid because he doesn't want to turn back into the Red Hulk. And he's trying to figure out this and that or whatever. And then you can have on the news that, 3 days after the attack on his life and the Red Hulk being a thing, and people could just think Thunderbolt Ross is dead. They don't even know he's the Red Hulk because of bomb and all this other stuff. You can say like weeks or like a couple of days after, President Ross was assassinated, his daughter's been kidnapped. And he rages the fuck out again because he knows who it was. He's like, it's the fucking leader, and I know where he is because I have him in prison there. And he Red Hulks the fuck out and goes to fight him. But because he's the Red Hulk and uncontrollable, that's why Cap also has to help stop him. Because while he does want to stop the leader, he can't have a unchecked Red Hulk destroying whatever the fuck he wants. So you still get these great scenes of Harrison Ford trying to control it, trying to do some things, all this stuff. You can have all that. But I just think it structures the movie better, and you keep 90% of most of the elements of this movie.
Yeah, and I really like you saying that thing about the public blaming Captain America for some of the stuff because he was there. Isaiah was there. That he couldn't stop any of this. And now look at the president and what's happening. And some of the public backlashing on him and saying, oh, this is worse than John Walker. All John Walker. There could be people that are like, man, why didn't they just let John Walker stay Captain America? We know John Walker would have killed whoever tried to go against the president. You could have brought back some of that stuff, and there could have been these supporters where like, no, the white guy was doing it better, and he is no Steve, and all of this kind of stuff. You could have played into that stuff.
And you could do it too without you going overtly into the racist aspects of it, by just having them use insanely coded language.
Yep. Coded stuff. Yep.
Which is not unheard of in politics all the time. You know, like just do that. I think I just think it feels more structurally sound than the way they present it in this movie. But that was my thought on how to fix this. Like I said, trying to fix it whilst not gutting everything, without going, well, instead of having the Red Hulk, you have the Red Skull. And instead of, you know what I mean? Without gutting everything they had in this movie, you could keep it, structure it differently.
What if what you're saying, it was the original draft? They just got rid of all of it.
Then I'm going to say all the people that test screened it were stupid because they ruined the movie.
And what if there were still some Flag Smasher people left from Falcon and the Winter Soldier that teamed up with the Serpent people because they're trying to get, and maybe they start this Captain America hate group or something.
Or they just, because they were lost after all that shit happened.
Yeah.
They joined the Serpent Society.
Yeah. So they joined the Serpent Society.
The leader, because he has access to the internet or whatever, because he's doing leader shit, starts doing propaganda targeting them to join him.
Yes. So you could have brought some of that back. Like, man, Carly's dead, Carly even said that when she died in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. She was like, even if we die, the Flag Smasher membership and stuff like that is so big, it'll continue without us. Well, why the fuck didn't it continue? They would have been trying to do something. Cap is now, now that Falcon is now Captain America and everything, that should have come back somehow. And the Serpents, that would have been the perfect opportunity to do it with the leader and everything.
And you could also have even the beginning scene still, right, with the adamantium. And you could have it all start with like the assassination because he's trying to do a peace summit, whatever, with adamantium. And you can have this whole thing being because the leader, and the reason why the Serpent Society is working with the leader is because the leader's telling them, if you get me that adamantium, I will make you weapons that will destroy, you know what I mean? You will take over. I need the adamantium though. But it's also because he's the leader, he's also like, and I get to fuck over Daddy Thaddy.
Yep.
So you still get adamantium in the movie.
Yes.
So it's so much better.
Yeah.
Real quick, I'll be quick. Ruth.
Big Ruth. Oh
Ruth.
yeah, Big Ruth. You
Ruth,
wanted to talk about Big Ruth.
Don't say Big Ruth, dude. That's making fun of that tiny woman. She is so small. And I'm not even trying to make fun of her. I'm just
What's wrong with Big Ruth?
I'm just saying that woman's 4'11". And I'm not lying. She's 4'11". She is a tiny woman. Don't be calling her Big Ruth. That's rude. That's patronizing. It is, I'm not gonna, and I don't mean this in a mean way. It is jarring in some scenes though how short she was compared to everyone else in this movie. There are times I'm like, whoa, this woman is short. But anyway, Ruth, the character Ruth, not the actress, the character Ruth. Okay. Lots of controversy with the character Ruth. In the comics, that character is also known as Sabra. Sabra is an Israeli special forces mutant that fights on the side of Israel and has been known to do some Palestinian genocides in the comics. Fantastic.
Oh, wow.
And they were like, yeah, we're going to have Sabra in this movie. And then, which was already bad enough when they announced it. Shit got worse if you don't know. So then they went, fuck. We have Sabra in our fucking movie. And then they went, well, let's fix it. She's an Israeli that was kidnapped and put in the Red Room. Which is why her character probably feels so out of place. Is they had to retcon her in the movie. because of other stuff, which was already bad enough. It was already bad enough. And they went, oh, it's worse.
That definitely does explain why I'm like, she feels unnecessary. Like, because
She was never meant to be a Yelena Black Widow analog. She was never meant to be that. She became that because genocide, which still doesn't feel that much better. But that's why. That's why Ruth feels extra out of place in this movie.
Yeah, man. I couldn't get behind Big Ruth. I mean, it was just something about it. And then
Justin, you
all
could,
I kept thinking is
she would have came up to your chest. See, this is why you can't keep calling her Big Ruth, Justin. You're going to bring this bad side out of me. There are times I really wondered about the behind the scenes of this movie, how they establish shots with her and other people. Because she is just that much shorter than everybody else. And then how do you frame the shot to where everybody just looks normal, but she's also there?
I mean, and that's why I thought it was funny when she was talking to Sam and she's like, oh, Bucky, he's tall and cute. And I'm like, I don't think Bucky's that tall. I think he's of average height. Like, I think he's not even 6 feet or anything, you know, but like.
He's the first man of average height that was called tall, sincerely.
Right. And I'm like, I mean, it makes sense because, like, for her, finding somebody tall, if that's what she's looking for, is probably easier than it is for other people. Like myself, who's like 5'9", like, you know.
Hey, one woman's short king is another man's giant.
This is true.
yeah, but she just, and then just, I'm sorry, but she's no ScarJo. She's no Yelena. Like, she just didn't have that kind of, she didn't have the, I mean, even if it's not even like a thing where I'm just like, well, maybe I can't wait to see what they do with this character. I'm kind of like, man, dude, I don't think this is it. I just
didn't have that presence with it.
Why didn't they just make her?
Presence?
Why didn't they just go, hey, she's just security. She's just really good at security. She beat people up. And like the best thing about her is she's small, so people unassume her, and then she just beats their ass. You don't have to make a red room.
That could have been. Why couldn't it have been somebody who was a former SHIELD agent and now they're in the White House? Just what happened to
Jastin?
What?
Why is there no SHIELD agents? I get that SHIELD might not be a thing, but you're telling me every ex-SHIELD agent is just unemployed now?
Yeah, they're just unemployed. They just can't get a job. Like, why aren't there still SHIELD agents out there doing shit? Former SHIELD agents doing shit. They'd be like the best freaking people to hire.
Why couldn't she just be like, yeah, that's Ruth, ex-SHIELD? Just say that. You go, yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah, I would automatically just went, okay, all right.
Why do you got to put her as going, hey, she's the same as Yelena and ScarJo? Not. She's just not. Because
she's just not.
And I don't mean this in any other way other than she just does not have the, I don't want to say screen presence, but she just does not have the charisma of either of them. And it's not close.
Well,
and she's not
ain't
bad.
Got nothing of the either of them. I'm gonna be real. She ain't got nothing of the either of them.
I thought she had a little bit of the charm when she was talking about Bucky.
Heather knew what I meant.
I'm trying to ignore
she
that.
She ain't got nothing of the either of them.
I'm just saying.
Nothing.
But she has a little bit of the charisma when she's talking about Bucky. But that's why she should have just been a SHIELD agent and a little bit of a nerd. Because, nobody thinks of the FBI as just like, most of them are like, very capable people at their job. But nobody's going, man, the FBI, all the charisma, an espionage of a spy. She doesn't have spy charisma. She's just got nerd charisma. So just have her be a SHIELD agent, just a federal law enforcement, but she was used to dealing with superheroes and superpower people. That's why she's a badass.
Yeah. And
I
that
like
would have
that
been
so
cool.
much better.
And that would have been cool to get an X shield in there. Then it would have been like, okay. And that's another loose end that you're at least addressing a little bit. Look, the shield agents are getting jobs doing other stuff. They're holding other positions, they're doing jobs elsewhere. And then I'm not, as a fan, making all these comparisons.
Dude,
Because it's unfair to be doing this job and I got to compare you to Scar Joe and
and to me, it's just because she doesn't feel like a spy.
yeah,
She just doesn't feel like a spy.
yeah, yeah,
And the thing is with it too is it's like you're telling me in this world there's no vice president and there's all these unemployed shield agents just running around. That is the MCU. It sounds terrible. The Constitution is gone. And just all these people hella unemployed.
Maybe we find out they're
highly
all
capable.
with the vice president and they're the lightning bolts or something.
Dude.
They're all running around with the vice president doing something.
In 15 years, we'll get a movie explaining where all the ex-SHIELD agents went.
Yeah.
But anyway, you guys got anything else about this movie, though?
No.
On that note, thank you guys for listening to this. Just another 3-hour podcast by Cinema Slayers. Check us on the internet, www.cinemaslayers.com. Cinema Slayers Podcast on Facebook. Cinema_Slayers on Instagram, Threads, and Letterboxd. At Cinema Slayers Pod on TikTok and YouTube. Give us a 5-star rating and review. We'd really appreciate it. Really help us out. Tell your family, tell your friends, tell your friends' family, tell your family's friends, and most of all, tell those dear sweet mothers, because dear sweet mothers love
Daddy Thaddy.
damn Skippy.
The only answer, the only right answer.
Daddy Thaddy. Because Daddy Thaddy really, he has the mustache. Daddy Thaddy has a mustache. Shout out to Plug Migo and Mundo Cho for our theme song and logos, respectively. We here at the Cinema Slayers Podcast, Pro Sydney, Pro Naked, you. Yes, you, Cinefans, you are enough. Justice for Chris, justice for Todd, justice for all those wonderful animators, caterers, and stunt people out there. And as always, in the TikToks, the YouTube videos, and most importantly, this podcast, just remember, according to Jastin, MCU's own Moon Knight is the Best Picture winner.
Daddy Thaddy is definitely the best thing I got out of this. 3 hours.
3 hours, and it boils down to Daddy Thaddy.
Yep. It all culminates to that.
All we're saying is if you take anything away from Captain America 4 Brave New World, Daddy Thaddy. That's a name you don't hear enough anymore, though. Thaddeus.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's because it's a bad name or it's just only a comic book name.
I knew a Thaddeus like a few years ago. I met a Thaddeus.
I don't think there were actually a Thaddeus. Did you see his birth certificate? I don't think the motherfucker actually named Thaddeus. Because I only think one person's ever been named Thaddeus, and it's Thunderbolt. In his first appearance in the comics. Is the only time Thaddeus was ever actually written down anywhere.
Maybe he was a fan. He just wanted to take the name.
Thaddeus. Was he cool? Was he
Yeah, he's cool.
a neat individual?
Where did you meet Thaddeus, though?
At a spoken word poetry event.
Oh, a poet.
So
Yeah.
not cool.
Extra cool, actually.
Very
Poets
uncool.
you don't think poets are cool? You don't like poets, Sterling? You really don't have a soul. You don't like poetry. What's
Justin,
wrong
it's
with
slam
you?
poetry, motherfucker. This ain't.
Uncultured swine.
This is
Just
not.
an
This is not the
uncultured
90s. We are not
swine.
watching deaf poetry. No.
Oh, deaf poetry was awesome.
Yeah.
I used to love that.
Yeah. And how long ago was that, motherfuckers?
I I will not apologize for liking spoken word poetry.
Before the Incredible Hulk was it?
Yeah, right. It was.
I'm about to say that was longer ago than the Incredible
Sure
Hulk,
was.
and we just bitched about for 3 hours about how long ago that was. Okay, just saying.
Hey, you brought up deaf poetry.
Yeah, the last time spoken word poetry was actually worth anything.
Man, that's a deep cut. That is a deep cut.
I'm just saying we're not listening to a Yasin Bey album here. Okay, this ain't Black Star. And Thaddeus wasn't cool. Now, Daddy Thaddy, on the other hand,
He's a poet, though.
okay,
Thaddeus, if you're listening,
you
this
uncool
does not
motherfucker.
reflect all of our opinion.
Oh, it does. We here at the Cinema Slave Podcast, pro slut, pro Sydney, pro naked, and anti spoken word poetry, especially if your name's Thaddeus.
Don't
Like
do that.
double if your name's Thaddeus.
Don't be that.
What was
way,
Thaddeus's
Sterling.
poem about?
Just isolating our fans one at a time.
I know. I can't
This ain't
get
the
it.
first
You
time I've done that. I have name dropped specific fans and told them to fuck off before. That's,
Namely Kurt.
yeah, fuck
went-
you,
Yeah,
Kurt.
he's
Fuck you,
he's
Kurt.
just on
Fuck
a
you,
tirade.
Thaddeus.
Like,
Especially
mean,
if
fuck
you are a
Kurt.
Thaddeus in the greater Chicagoland area that has done spoken word poetry, fuck you. I'm looking right at you. Fuck you.
what is your malfunction today?
It's 1:40 in the morning. That's what the fuck my malfunction is. And out of the last 7 podcasts, we've only done one that's under 3 hours.
This is a fair reason to be upset.
And that's why here. Look here. Fuck you, Thaddeus. That's why that's happening.
Man,
You never told me, Heather,
Power
what was
to the
this poem
poets.
about?
power to the poets.
What?
What was Thaddeus's poem about?
I honestly don't remember at this point.
Point proven. Thank you.
Just because it was easily 10 years ago.
Okay.
Still, it was a decade ago. Come on. And you don't remember every poem? You don't know them all.
Hey, all I'm saying is I remember Tim Blake Nelson from 18 years ago. If she can't remember Thaddeus' poem from 10, can't be that good.
Do you remember Tim Blake Nelson's monologues or dialogue from the first movie?
Man, that motherfucker was just talking about oh, but we got to give you the gamma rays, Bruce. Jastin, tell me I'm wrong. That's pretty much all that motherfucker said.
Give me the gamma.
Because he did. He
The
cured.
gamma.
He cured him for it's 10 minutes. Cured him for 10.
Yeah.
That's more than Thaddeus the poet's done. She can't even name a word in his poetry. Not even a word. She couldn't even play the probabilities, and he probably said a "the" somewhere.
In my head, I was just thinking the. How about that?
See, man, motherfucker is sitting there I can't play the leader. I know all about probabilities. Apparently, I knew what she was gonna say.
That's legit.
And as people that have portrayed the leader, all I'm gonna say is fuck you, Thaddeus.
Poor
He might have been
Thaddeus
one of those
catching
poets
strays
that-
out here.
And he might have had that he might have been one of those poets that just doesn't really say anything. He just says one word and then he just looks. He pierces into you, man.
I'm not gonna lie.
Just ponder his word.
I'm gonna
Mhm.
throw this out here, guys, and this might be the most controversial thing I've ever said. I'm gonna say that's not a poem. So he's bad at being a poet.
It's different, Sterling. It's
Man,
just different.
If I go up on a stage and I just go probabilities, is that a poem, motherfucker?
You're not saying it right, though. You're not saying it like a poet would say it. You gotta. It's
All right,
different,
no, I can
man.
do
When
this.
they
I can
get
do
up
this.
there, it's different.
Probabilities.
That's good. Yeah.
That ain't no
There you
fucking
go.
poem. Fuck all that.
He is catching strays out here, poor guy.
Oh,
I
that's
know,
not a stray.
man. I know. Just
What are you
for
saying?
no
That's a stray.
reason, man. You just,
That's not a stray. I deliberately did that. A stray implies that was unintentional. I meant every word of what I said.
I'm just saying, like, just because his name is Thaddeus in general.
Motherfucker's
and he
name ain't
likes
no
to read
Thaddeus. I'm
poetry.
telling you, no human being
his
has been
parents
named
named
Thaddeus.
him, and you are giving him hell.
Did you
You're
see
giving him
that
all
man's
this hell.
passport?
And his parents just named him. I mean, that's all they
That
did. They just gave him a
motherfucker.
name.
And this is
Sterling.
before you even knew where I met the guy. You were like, no.
I have never heard more of a bullshit I'm a spoken word poet's stage name in my life than Thaddeus.
They named him, Sterling. His parents named him. They named him.
Yeah,
That's all
probably
they did.
Steve.
You are unbelievable.
They named that
First
motherfucker.
Pompey and now Thaddeus. I
His
don't
name was
understand
probably Timothy, and he's all reading a Hulk comic once, and he goes, "But I want to be Thaddeus, the poet." And his parents probably kicked him out of the house. And I agree with them.
Why would they do that? Why wouldn't they go, "That's beautiful, son. Let's get him into literature"?
Jastin, think about what you just said. That's beautiful. It's not. Objectively. Like, it's not. That's not beautiful.
Well, you might think he's a dork, dumbass, but I think he has beautiful parents, and
Jastin,
the sun was
I
shining
don't
that
think,
day. And when he
I don't
said,
think
"I want to be
shit.
a poet,"
I
they were like,
don't
"Hell
think
yeah,
shit.
boy.
I
That's a
know
beautiful-
that
that's
motherfucker
beautiful, Thaddeus."
is a dumbass. I know. Probability says so.
I don't think that's how Thaddeus's life played out. I could tell by the way when Heather met him, when young Heather, what were
That
you, teen Heather?
motherfucker
What were you? What kind
probably-
of Heather were you at that time?
That would have been like mid to late 20s, Heather.
So you were a slam poetry, Heather?
Yeah, slam poetry, Heather.
The three stages of Heather so far that we've been able to uncover on this podcast. It's little kid BK Heather, slam poetry Heather, and now podcast Heather.
Yep. The trifecta.
The three
There you
stages
go.
of Heather. See, that right there, me saying that, it's the three stages of Heather is a more beautiful poem than Thaddeus has ever written in his fucking life. Am I a spoken word poet now, motherfuckers?
I don't believe that.
Exactly.
I think Thaddeus, I think his parents said, "That's beautiful, boy, that you got that in you. Let's take the classes and get your poetry out."
Man, that motherfucker
Then
would have
that's
failed
when
the
she
classes.
went on and he was on his quest and he met Heather. Isn't that great?
No, that sounds
And
terrible.
then now she was able to report this to us. Why can't you appreciate that story?
Man, this woman is sitting here telling us about a terrible, traumatic time in her life, and you're talking about how it's a beautiful story. The fuck is wrong with you, Jastin? She said she met a slam poet. Who the fuck has ever been proud of that in their life? She is trauma dumping on us right now, Jastin, and you're talking about how beautiful it is. That is fucked up and terrible.
When it gets past 1:40 a.m., Sterling turns into Red Hulk.
Yeah, he does. He really does.
We've reached the cap of Sterling, between Sterling and, Red Hulk Sterling. This is the limit right here.
Was it last episode where recently we've talked about it, how I have a lot of anger built up in me. This is what happens. You tell me somebody's a slam poet, it just comes the fuck out.
Yeah, man, you just got really riled up.
My Hulk powers come out when you talk about slam poetry. Like, Thaddeus's and Bruce's come out when they get angry. Mine comes out when I'm fucking talking about slam poetry.
Just really hit a nerve.
I get it though. Like that Baby Yoda thing. What the fuck is that? You know?
Everybody's just getting really mad right now.
I get it,
I think
man.
we should just call it.
Jastin's Red Hulk is Chicky Nuggies and Dr. Peppy.
Right.
Man, what is that stupid shit, man? I'm gonna write a poem about that shit. Stupid shit.
It's just going to be this perpetual
It's
cycle of me and
illogical.
Jastin igniting each other's Hulk. Because he'll be doing slam poetry and I'll just be all Chicky Nuggy, Dr. Peppy. And we'll just be in this battle of just hulking out.
That was a beautiful slam poet situation or slam poetry piece of work.
Motherfuckers act like it's difficult. I just knocked out like 8 different poems according to you, motherfuckers.
I think it's bedtime.
Yeah, it really is. Like,
Motherfuckers, you guys got me fired up now. I'm
Yeah,
wide
we
the fuck
know.
awake now. Y'all like, ooh, it's time to go Betty bye. Well, motherfucker, I want to go. Let's record another episode right now about just this.
no, just no, hang up and stop it, and so you write your poetry down.
I ain't
And
writing
tell us
shit
in the
down.
morning.
This is spoken word. I got to speak it.
I think you did, but I appreciate this.
This is
Speak
my
it on
poem,
paper.
airing my
Speak it on
grievances.
Speak it on paper. Do it on papyrus. Do it on that.
Are we sitting in ancient Macedonia now? You want me to pull a Pompeii out? This is my Vesuvius. See, another poem right there. Bam. Acting like this shit hard. Like people have to be talented to do that shit. I just wrote a poem called My Vesuvius.
Those are words. And you spoke them. That you did.
You know what rhymes with Vesuvius? Vesuvius. Like I'm even rhyming and shit. All right, let's get the fuck out of here, guys.